and neither the left or the right is looking like achieving that at this point.
Well, can I just say is that what these are is actually the small booths. And so what that actually shows is I think there is a landslide is building up here, because when you look at it, ACT should be doing higher in the smaller booths and that we should be doing a lot lower. And what you've got with Labor is about mid-30s now with the small booths that are coming in, and National is losing in those. And so what I'm suggesting is I think the mood is on for quite a substantial move to the centre-left.
We'll hold that thought. We'll come back to you, Nick Strauss, in a moment, but I think we're going to go and have a look at a Wellington Central progress report. There it is. We are looking, or we are predicting at this point, that Richard Prebble would hold that seat. Now, Nick, that would be manna from heaven as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, that'd be tremendous, but, you know, only 1.8% is counted, so it's going to be a long night.
There's 5 votes between them, is that right?
Yeah, not
50,
at all.
55.
45 votes between them. I mean, Pam, this is a little bit like last time, isn't it? I mean, we thought the results would come through earlier. They're not. They're going to come through later and later.
Having been in that place last time for candidates, it's absolutely ghastly. I mean, I just want to put my hand up for them. And I remember it got to about 11:30 and I said, well, let's concede, you know, victory, even though we don't know. You know, we're sitting there tragically with bottles of champagne. And I thought that there was a blue today in the polling booths. Why not put the referendum slips in one box? I don't want to tell Phil Whelan and all his crew what to do. But I thought, wouldn't that have made the counting more simple if they had done it that way? The main party and electorate vote in one box and one in the other. You see, the men here have been criticising your machinery. I defended it, and I also think a woman should have been running the polling booths today, and they would have come up with that very simple solution, and we would have all got some sleep earlier. Yeah.
Mike Williams, how tense is it going to be at Helen Clark's place tonight if she's looking at that poll at the moment?
Oh, she'd be fairly relaxed about that, I would imagine. I think what we're looking at now is quite a heavy swing against National in the rural areas.
Well, you said to me, what, 10 days ago you thought Labor had won the provinces?
Yeah, I'm quite convinced that's true. We've seen lots of very small booths come in, and National really ought to have established a lead at this point. They haven't done.
All right, we'll come back to that thought shortly. Paul, back to you.
Good, Linda, and the panel, a Rangateke progress we have for you. There you will see that Simon Power is, with 4% of the vote counted, Simon Power well ahead. But again, that's one of those country seats. We'll be keeping a very close eye on what happens with that vote as it develops through the night, because that being one of the rural seats, of course, Simon Power. And Bill English, comfortably positioned, of course, not much doubt about that, particularly National win in Clutha, or Clutha Southland. And here we are again at Avondale in the hospitality room. Oh, there's the kids coming out, and they seem to be a little bit distressed. 4 of them, we understand, and the fire service, it seems, managed to open the lift, and they're upset. That's Tony Timms of the Labor Party there, guiding the kids, and some inspection, really, of that lift will be going. I know you can tell from the fireman's suit, of course, raining in Auckland tonight. It's been a very warm, hazy sort of day, and that's a subtropical sort of rain. Mike Munro there. Now, Wellington Central, we'll look at that, firming up for ACT at the moment as more and more booths come in. I'm not sure what percentage of that vote is counted in Wellington Central. What do you make of that? Interesting what Mike Williams is saying, really, about the possibility. I know that Labor have felt for some time, and that the parties of the left have felt for some time. I remember Jim Anderton coming by perhaps 18 months ago, and he'd been to Whangarei, and he'd been to do a meeting, and the local people had put 200 seats in the hall. He went to inspect the hall. This was a year ago, 18 months. He said, take 100 of those out. I don't want to look silly talking to an empty hall. When he got back at 7 o'clock, they were putting the seats back in. So he figured something was happening in the provinces, and Mike Williams has been saying for a couple of weeks they were reading something unusual in the provinces. It looks as if National had won the province, had lost the provinces, and Labor had won them, so we'll see what happens.
Of course, in the old days, you could win an election on the provincial vote. This time round, these days, you've got to win Auckland as well, and we haven't really seen enough of those Auckland votes in yet to be able to say one way or the other. Now, I think we're going to Brian Donnelly.
Yep.
Good evening, how are you in Whangarei?
Good evening, Linda.
How are you feeling?
Well, I'm sort of sitting on about 4 knife edges at the moment, but we're still buoyant.
Still buoyant? I mean, the polls would say that you're not going to hold, or you're not going to take that seat. Of course, it's John Banks's seat and he's not standing, so that was a bit of a help.
Well, at this particular stage, but there's only a small percentage of the vote in, and Whangarei is a city with wide variety and diversity, and so it really depends upon which of those polling booths are in at this particular stage.
Now, you will have heard what our panellists had to say. I mean, the predictions at the moment, we've got New Zealand First nationwide voted about 7%. They're saying, look, don't open the champagne corks yet, because that's not going to be the final result. What are you picking for a party vote?
Well, I think that we'll go about the 5.5%. I think that's correct, that it's too early to open up the champagne bottles because of the nature of the electorate counts that have come in. They've tended to be the smaller provincial or rural ones and the Māori ones, where obviously New Zealand First does well. But it is heartening to see the percentage that we score gaining at the moment.
All right, now bear with us, because you can't see it, but we're showing the rest of the country a progress report on Whangarei, the seat that you would like to take, and what we're seeing there is that the National candidate is ahead, the Labour candidate is running second, and you at the moment have 59 votes. That is only 1.4% of the vote in, I have to tell you.
That's only 1.4% of the vote in. As I say, a small booth, it really tells us very little at this stage.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. I'm sure we'll talk to you again later in the evening. Now we're crossing to Tauranga, of course, another key seat for New Zealand First, and Lee Pearson.
Hello, Linda. Well, as you can hear, there's a party going on here, and Hugh's predictions have certainly lifted the spirits here. When I related those results to the folk who are sitting there drinking their Sprite lemonade and a few glasses of wine, they sort of raised their eyebrows sort of in disbelief, but didn't quite want to admit that they were afraid that Winston wouldn't do too well. Yeah. Winston, I'm told, earlier this evening was feeling a little nervous and tense, but I'm sure those results have also lifted his spirits as well.
You've got to say something about New Zealand First, haven't you? It doesn't matter what happens, they always think they can bounce back, and they can always get enough black and white balloons to decorate the hall.
And these people, well, they're dressed in black and white as well, Linda, and they're absolutely convinced that everything that's been said about Winston throughout this campaign is wrong. You know the sort of people here. They believe in Winston right down to the wire, and they think that the polls have all been wrong. The predictions are sort of looking like what they expect, but they think he might even do better than the predictions, of course.
Well, we'll come back to you later this evening. Thank you, Lee.
We have a Te Tai Tonga progress. This is the Tuwali's seat again. No, we do not at this stage. But we do have from Rotorua, we have the member. Originally, of course, New Zealand First member, now not New Zealand First, Tuariki John Delamere, who had a controversial sort of a week. How do you read the way things are going for you in the seat, John? Kia ora.
Oh, kia ora, Paul. No idea at the moment. We'll just wait and see. You know, the only result that counts is the one that's declared at the end, and you know, we'll see how things are going.
Tell me, though, it was Wednesday, wasn't it? Mississippi Secretary for Immigration on Wednesday. And what kind of reaction? And there was sort of a very good report, I have to say, from Michael Holland on One Network News about the desperation some of the people in your electorate, and amongst married people unemployed in your electorate, 25%. What was reaction from people to what you were trying to do and to what Mississippi had done?
Well, Paul, the reaction I'd like to say is, no matter what happens, you know, tonight, whether I get in or don't get in, I'd like to suggest to Jenny and to Helen that this is a good idea, and that they should encourage Māori to get up and don't just discard that because, you know, they're playing political rhetoric with me.
Right,
put it aside after the election and let these investors come in and invest in not only Māori, but also Pākehā businesses in rural areas. I think it's a good idea. And I hope they follow it up after the election and put aside the political rhetoric. Good.
And now we had the campaigning. Can I ask you what kind of reaction, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I'm sure it's a habit one gets into, John, but what kind of reaction did you get in those last couple of days? I'm just interested to know from Māori
people. Well,
it
it seemed to be, you know, pretty positive, but again, whether it's positive enough, I guess we'll know in an hour or two.
Have you got many people there? You're not lonely, are you?
Oh, no, there's about 60 or 70 people here. Most of them still over in the dining room, I think, finishing off dinner.
Good, John. Tuariki John Delamere await, eh?
Which wouldn't be a bad thing.
No, exactly.
You've got to say.
Awaiting results in Wairiki. Now, Linda, you're going to...
Actually, one of the things about... if John Delamere doesn't hold that seat, and if Derek Fox doesn't hold that seat, and we've already seen that Tuwali's in trouble down south, it will be a clean sweep for Labour. That would be historic, actually. It would be a return to the old, the ways of old.
it would be a return to the ways of old, but with a Labour Party and with all parties very much aware that that Maori initiatives have to be dealt to, and that Maori have to be considered, because when they carry 6 seats, when Maori people carry 6 seats, they can deliver a serious blow or a serious affirmation to any political party, which gets their vote or doesn't get their vote.
Now, I think that we might... in fact, we are going to Mark Sainsbury, who is at Jim Anderton's headquarters. Mark, any sign of the vibrant and rejuvenated Mr Anderton?
Well, the vibrant and rejuvenated Mr Anderton is still at party headquarters here. They're looking at the program, they're looking at the results as they're coming in. He doesn't want to come here until they have a clear idea what's going to happen. The crowd, though, is building up here, but people are still watching those results, and because the poll at this stage is so low, no one wants to get too excited. I think everyone generally still thinks that Alliance is going to be in there, but no one wants to sort of get too excited until they see something concrete. And, of course, what's really going to lift them is when Jim Anderton does get here. They're confident he, of course, will hold his local seat, but they want to see sort of more of the swing. They want to know exactly where the Alliance is going to figure in it, and there's some concern as well about how much of an influence the Green vote is going to be, whether that's going to cut into the influence the Alliance would have if the centre-left gets up tonight.
So when they saw those early polls just a few moments ago, looking at the Alliance being about 7%, they would be a bit alarmed at that. It's a bit lower than they might have wished.
Well, I speak to people around here, and they say, well, look, it's still too early. It's a low count at this stage, and as we've heard on the program already, there's a lot of the urban vote yet to come in. And they expect the Alliance to show better as more of the larger booths come in. They're still, you know, people are sort of confident here, but they're just holding back until they get more of a definite result. And of course, they want to see Jim Anderton.
Indeed they do. And we'll come back to you later in the evening, I'm sure.
We have a Rakaia progress. Jenny Shipley, very comfortably positioned, of course, the 48-year-old first woman New Zealand Prime Minister in Rakaia, predicting a national win. Christchurch Central. Now, some heavy hitters operate in Christchurch Central. This is Tim Barnett there. No, Tim Barnett there. Of course, the Labour MP predicting a Labour win. Nearly 8% of the vote counted there. Liz Gordon for the Alliance is a candidate. We have progress from Taupo. David Steele there. Mark Burton is the sitting MP predicting a Labour win in Taupo. Now we can go to Michael Holland. Michael Holland, again at the Green headquarters in Thames, aren't you?
That's right, Paul. Paul, it's a good, fun, jovial atmosphere here. Some of the supporters are wondering where those results are. They're desperate to hear the results. About 100 people here, and not the biggest room in creation, but they've all squeezed in. Lots of children here as well. One result that has just come through, and that is from a booth in what is described as the blue, or the national part of the electorate, and those results suggest a 19% swing to Jeanette Fitzsimons. So an early result, but certainly a good one from the Greens' point of view.
That would be an extraordinary swing, wouldn't it? 19%. All right, Michael, so again, you and people, the Greens, and Jeanette Fitzsimons on the left of our picture of you there, waiting patiently for further results. Hugh, we can look at the layout as she would appear so far.
Yes, thank you, Paul. If we can run through the party vote worm behind me here on the screen, because I just want to pick up on what Mike Holland said there a minute ago about the Greens. We seem to have a slight glitch there, but nevertheless, extend that to get our predictions and list the party percentages. Now, the Greens are coming in all night just below, there's some rounding up there to 5%. They're coming in just below the 5% mark, something between 4.8, 4.9, even 4.95. And so if we can convert that to seats in the House, the way it looks at the moment, the Greens won't be there. Now, Labour and Alliance have been hovering around 60, 61 all the time. If they drop back a little bit to 60, it's going to be a problem for them. Now, the feature of tonight will be the Greens. If they don't quite make that 5%, then they're relying on Jeanette Fitzsimons. And I think it'll be interesting to see what sort of information will come out from their headquarters there.
Good. Talkie. This is Hastings and very much a central Hawke's Bay as well, parts of central Hawke's Bay. Again, quite a big electorate to service, predicting Labour win there for Rick Barker, who services his electorate very well indeed, I understand. East Coast again, Linda, that's that big seat, isn't it? East Coast there. Janet Mackey expected to hold that, 9% of that vote counted. In Invercargill, Mark Peck's...
West Coast Tasman, where Labour's Damien O'Connor is pulling ahead now. He is expected to hold that seat, which will be good news for him because, of course, his party's had some trouble in the area. Invercargill now, there you have it. Mark Peck's the sitting member, a Labour MP. He is expected to hold the seat. See the asterisk next to Eric Roy. He is a National Party member as well. High enough on the list, unless the swing against them is too high, he should still be in Parliament.
He's the list MP, isn't he, with responsibilities for the South? And
he is indeed. Now, Hamilton East this time. Now, the Hamiltons are the two Hamilton seats are always ones to watch because they swing this way and that. Diane Yates there is the sitting member, and she is, well, it is going to be a close call there, actually. She's up against Tony Steele.
She, ex-headmaster, ex-principal of Hamilton Boys, and, of course, Diane Yates' responsibility for women's affairs in the Labour Party. There's your other Hamilton seat, Linda.
Martin Gallagher there. Now, he used to hold this seat. He lost it. He's running for it again against the sitting member this time, Bob Simcock. It's going to be very tight there. That is going to be one to watch throughout the evening.
You know, just stop... Oh, OK, Taranaki King Country, Shana Dern, very well positioned, 20% of the vote counted there. Owen Jennings, might he be disappointed with that number?
He might indeed. Of course, Owen Jennings is high enough on the X list. He should make it. Now, Kevin Campbell also on the Alliance. He stood in the Taranaki King Country by-election and did remarkably well. Got quite a good list placing as a reward.
But you might have expected, mightn't you, with 20% of the vote counted, to see Owen Jennings above the Labour candidate in Taranaki King Country.
Well, that is a returning home in terms of the vote, because if you look at the by-election, it was a much, much different result. Labour came in third place in that by-election. It was a bit of a humiliation. The Alliance came in second place. So, yeah, things have changed a lot since the 18 months ago, or whenever that by-election was.
And again, if you can look at the strength, perhaps, of the Labour vote this time, with Damien O'Connor's numbers at the moment in West Coast, I thought he'd be having a much more difficult job, because that really was a very bitter reaction to Labour Party policy we saw in...
The interesting thing there, though, will be to see the breakdown in the party vote, because what those Labour people may well have done... I mean, Damien O'Connor comes from a very West Coast family. He, remember, argued against Labour's policy of banning the logging. They may well have voted for him and kicked Labour off the party list there.
They will know he's in a difficult position. Ikara Rafiti, again, Parakura Horomia, the Labour candidate, just comfortably ahead at the moment, fairly comfortably perhaps ahead of Derek Fox, 17, just under 18% of the vote counted. Te Tai Tonga, Tuwali seat, the southern Maori seat. No Tokara we're going to. This is the northern Maori seat, the old northern Maori seat. Mr Henare not being well received at all by the people he served for, what, 6 years? That's right, he's had 2 terms, hasn't he?
He's had 2 terms.
Looks like he might not get the 3rd term and might not get the pension, but I suppose...
And it'll be a sad story, because although, you know, he's been a controversial figure, but one of Parliament's more colourful figures as well.
David Samuels, though, has campaigned very vigorously. Te Tai Tonga, again, there's your southern Maori now. Mahara Okoroa, well ahead of Tuwali, predicting a Labour win there. So,
and as we mentioned earlier, Tuwali chose not to go on the New Zealand First list, so if he doesn't win there tonight, he is at the Winds office tomorrow morning looking for a job.
You'll note tonight, too, that we haven't had many commercial breaks. We have fewer commercial breaks tonight because of our election coverage, and we'll be with you right through the evening with analysis, with the results, with the predictions, until the end of the night, until as long as we need to be here. More from Decision 99 in a few minutes.
Hi, Mum.
Hi.
Can't stay.
Aww.
Actually, can you help me out?
Of course I can.
Oh. Thanks, Mum. See ya.
Personal high performance. Whiter, brighter.
Half an hour ago, Max was given a Capstar flea tablet, while Ted was given a conventional treatment which can take up to 12 hours to start working. Quite an uncomfortable wait, isn't it? So whenever you see fleas, give fast relief with a Capstar tablet, available from vets and supermarkets for dogs and pussycats.
Cher's greatest hits. 4 decades of smash singles.
And the beat goes on. Yes, the beat goes on.
from Sonny and Cher to her brilliant solo career. Greatest hits collections don't come any better than this. Cher's Greatest Hits. 19 songs on one CD. In store now.
And then I said, I'll wear my trunks to ballet.
Yeah, well, you know, I've always liked the water, even more so since I learned how to swim.
Away from having to keep one hemisphere above the water. Yeah.
Well, I think everyone should learn how to swim.
Excuse me there, buddy.
It's, yeah, safer and more fun. Take the plunge. Well, that's my philosophy.
Tremendous physique, good takeoff, fantastic. Triple reverse pike. Into the water, rarely seen. No splat, fantastic.
Learn to swim this summer with Lotto Take the Plunge. Pick up a leaflet at your Lotto shop.
Can you imagine what it's like to weigh as much as two ordinary people? That's what I was like before my wife and I joined Jenny Craig. After 15 months on the program, I lost 64 kilos. That's about the same as Karen weighs now. I was virtually carrying my wife around with me every day. But at Jenny Craig, we both learnt how to take the weight off and keep it off. And the best part was, we did it together.
Hurry, it's the final week to get fit for summer. Lose up to 10 kilos for $10. Call 0800 502 302.
Who's there? Fred. What's not yet at rest? The king's abed. He hath been in unusual pleasure and sent forth great largesse to your officers. This Diamond, he greets your wife with all by the name of the most kind hostess, and shut up in measureless content.
Being unprepared, our will became the servant to defect.
Does anyone feel like a lion red?
So I lose none in seeking to augment it, but still keep my bosom franchise and...
$6.50 for a beer.
We are continuing with Decision 99, bringing you it as fast as we can tonight, calling it as fast as we can bring you the results. I should tell you, too, we've halved the number of commercial breaks tonight, to be pleased to know. It's been suggested that I point out we've actually halved the number of commercial breaks. Just before we go to get a progress, I think Northland's probably going to be the next, or might even be Rakai. I don't know where we're going to get a result from next or a progress from next, but Nigel Roberts, how would you... from what we see of the way things are developing tonight, how does it compare with your Victoria University poll? How are things shaping up? It looks pretty even.
I think things are pretty well on track, except, of course, the surprise of the evening is that at the moment New Zealand First is higher than we thought. New Zealand First is in around 6% at the moment, and it, though, is tracking slightly downwards. I think that the explanation that we had from Matt McCartan earlier this evening, that early booths have come predominantly from Maori electorates. There has, of course, still been a residue of support for New Zealand First there. There could be another thing, and I think this has to be considered by all survey researchers and pollsters, that maybe people are prepared to say to pollsters that they're going to vote for New Zealand First. There's a bit of embarrassment. New Zealand First has been in the poo, and I think that that's been, Winston and Winnie the Pooh type of thing. So it does seem to me that there could be a difficulty here. The story of the night, though, is the Greens. They're hovering all the time, just below 5%. And, of course, that below 5%, if that sticks, if that doesn't rise as they move into the heavily urban booths, then it's going to all hang on Coromandel, because that figure of 4.8, 4.9% could go completely to waste if Jeanette Fitzsimons does not win Coromandel.
Good, Nigel. Interesting to Linda that although women in New Zealand, because we've looked very much at the women in this campaign, Jenny Shipley, Helen Clark, and of course Jeanette Fitzsimons in the last few weeks. But although I didn't realise until the other day that although women got the vote in New Zealand in 1893, they weren't actually able to stand for Parliament until 1919, and 3 women contested in 1919. A woman didn't win a seat in the New Zealand Parliament until 1933. That was...
Believe it or not.
Believe it or
We're going to Rakai. Jenny Shipley's seat... well, look, I mean, it's a national safe seat. She is predicted to win it. It would be a strange day indeed if Jenny Shipley lost Rakai.
That would be real, believe it or not.
That would be. We're going to Ilam now. I think we're going to Ilam. No, we're not going to Ilam.
Well, we can be fairly sure of Jerry Brownlee there, I would think, after his gallant defence of Mrs Shipley with the great unwashed hecklers at the National Party launch. Now you've got Ilam.
We have Ilam now. Bear with us, of course. There we are, Jerry Brownlee. As Paul and I so cleverly predicted that will show that he probably is likely, he is expected to win that seat. Progress report in, 8.3% of the vote. No one else really in the running at this point in time.
Te Ātatua Progress and Chris Carter, the Labour MP, looks comfortably positioned there, we're predicting. Vanessa Neeson, if she were to get in, that would be the first husband and wife team ever in a New Zealand Parliament. Brian Neeson is standing, I think, in the seat of...
Yes, indeed. And Laila Hare there will get in through the alliance list anyway.
So, Nigel, what we got?
Well, let's go and have a look at the share of the votes. We were talking about them a few minutes ago and the comparisons with the Victoria University poll. Let's look at the share of the party votes, because it's that party vote that is crucial. And here we can see, and we're going to now animate this and fill in the shares that we've got as of now. 36.8 for Labour, nearly 30% for National, 7.4 for the Alliance. The Alliance coming in third there, 6.5 for ACT, 6.6 for New Zealand First, United 0.4, and the Greens, we were saying just a few moments ago, just below the 5% threshold. And let's see how that turns into seats. And we can turn that into seats with luck. Yep, after a little hiccup. No, it's hiccuping. Well,
it's for Labour there, 36.6. That 36.6, Nigel, you're looking at there is exactly the national vote on 36.8. Well, that's pretty close to the national vote in the last election, and
National's vote there would just be slightly above Labour's vote. That's what you were going to say.
Above.
I interrupted you.
All right, we can go to Duncan Garner. He's at the Shipley headquarters in Methven. I hope it's warming up nice there for you, Duncan.
Well, finally, it's taken a long time. Boy, it's really taken a long time to warm up here, but finally these people are starting to get a bit warmed up. Jenny Shipley is expected here now. We've just been told about 10, possibly 10:30 is what we've been told from her minders.
And, of course, they're looking very sprightly. They're looking very spry, too, and despite the cold weather, not dressed up particularly for it, Duncan, the people behind you, but, of course, I suppose they're used to sometimes in temperate weather this late in the year.
I'll tell you, it's very cold outside. I think the best place to be is right in here. It's certainly warming up.
Very cold for North Islander, of course. So that's Duncan Garner at the Methven headquarters, as he says. Jenny Shipley expected shortly. Let's go to Catherine O'Regan, is with us from Tauranga. She's the national candidate in Tauranga. How's it looking? Yes, big cheer for Catherine. And a very nice, what do you call that, a corsage, too, Catherine. So how are you feeling about it? How are you looking at it?
Very positively, Paul, very positively.
You had any indication from the booths asking about?
No, not yet. We haven't had any indication yet. So we're being very positive about it, and we've been leading in the polls for the last 2 weeks, so we're pretty positive.
And we can't, I don't think, have we done much progress on Tauranga tonight? Because
we haven't yet done any progress on that, and we'd expect it will be pretty close.
So sorry, Katerina, that we cannot tell you more at the moment.
Well, we'll find out in due course.
Of course we will. Now we've got Jim Anderton at his headquarters. Jim Anderton is with us. We're just looking at Jim Anderton there. He's studying the form. I don't seem to have him on the camera, but we've got him there on the monitor studying some form, talking some numbers. Jim Anderton, who's had a very relaxed day, says, in which he did the lawns. He's gone away from the black look, gone away from the black shirt. We're back to the white shirt now. The voting's...
No comment on that.
Now the voting's over.
Now, we're going now to Laurelie Mason, who I understand is outside Helen Clark's house.
That's right, Linda. Outside in the rain, outside Helen Clark's charming Mount Eden villa. Very wet out here. She's actually inside, and there have been a lot of comings and goings since we've been here earlier this evening. People, obviously her husband Peter Davis has come back. He's gone inside. People arriving with picnic hampers, so perhaps they're having a bit of a picnic on the lounge room floor or something while they watch the television.
Or they're settling in for a very long night and leaving you outside in the
Well, that could be it. I wouldn't like to think that. Among them, Marilyn Waring,
We can only conclude, Laura, that Peter hasn't cooked dinner tonight, because we saw him, was it the assignment piece in which he was cooking the dinner with the
tandoori chicken, I seem to recall.
And I seem to remember he was ticked off rather in the piece for not cooking it quite right, did you?
He was actually, and he served it with potatoes, and that's another matter. But we're not talking about culinary dishes tonight. Laurelie, tell us, any communication with the Clark camp? Do we know how they're feeling?
Very relaxed, from what I can gather. And as I say, there have been a lot of comings and goings. A lot of friends in their family, her parents, her sisters, nephews and nieces, and also other friends like Marilyn Waring, for example, has been in. And from what we can gather, they could be coming out in about an hour's time. The last time they said it would be an hour, but they're waiting to see, I think, to see whether there's a little bit more lead on how things go. I might actually take Alan with me over here, cameraman Alan, and you'll see we have the car over here waiting to take Helen Clark. That's sort of That started up a couple of times and they've turned off the engine, so we've been all getting very excited for a second there. And the chaps over here...
Shot. The car looks like the aeroplane in Casablanca, doesn't it, as she walks to the aeroplane, yes?
We've got some chaps from the, very shy, from the Diplomatic Protection Service who are here to escort her over to the Avondale Jockey Club when she's ready to go. So we're all waiting, standing very by here, waiting for her to come out and grace us all with her presence.
Well, you stay dry.
Stay dry, and of course, while you're waiting and standing awfully by, we've got Jackie Marr at the Avondale, where the crisis of the elevator car has been solved, and there would be, I suppose, some quiet confidence, Jackie.
Yes, very quiet and cautious confidence. It's very sedate here. Obviously, you can see behind me the hall has filled up, and there's plenty of people here now, but they're all just cautiously confident. I've gone around asking them about predictions, and they're actually pretty cagey. They think they're going to have a new Prime Minister, a new woman Prime Minister in the government, but they're not going overboard. It reminds me of Jonathan Hunt on Friday, getting the megaphone out and yelling to everybody, 3 cheers for the new New Zealand Prime Minister, Helen Clark, hip hip hooray, and she stopped him. She let him go through and then stopped him very quickly.
Still, he would have a good feeling, because Jonathan Hunt's been in that parliament for 33 years, came in 1966, a man standing against Brian Neeson in Waitagere, we decided during the commercial break, didn't we?
And actually, and they say around Parliament that he's never, ever on the losing side of any coup, and this time he is on the side of Helen Clark, so take from that what you will. We're joined again by Derek Fox. Derek, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Any more progress from where you're standing?
Well, no, we haven't heard too much more, other than the fact that we're still hanging in there, we're still within touch, quite closely in touch, and so that's as much as we know. You may know more.
What would you say if by the end of the evening...
Do you know more than Derek?
Well, I don't want to declare my head now, but anyway...
Derek seemed to think you didn't, not even on Crossfire.
I know,
That's a great concession from me.
What? What, Derek?
It's a great concession from me.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That you know more.
Just remember, you might be an MP tomorrow and you might need my help.
Okay.
Now, if you are... if we're looking at the polls and the trends across the country and we see the possibility of all of those seats, Māori seats, returning to Labour, what would you say about that?
I'd be disappointed because, and in fact, the fact that I'm still hanging in here, as opposed to my other colleagues, suggests something, and it may well suggest that the sorts of things that I've been talking to my electorate about has interested them and fired them up. And there's not a shadow of doubt in my mind that we will take those seats eventually. I intend taking those seats because I just don't believe that any of the political parties that currently exist are going to be able to do the sorts of things that Māori really need. They can't possibly do that because at the end of the day, they are driven by other forces.
And a large section of the electorate seems to endorse what you're saying, Derek.
Well, I would have thought so,
No, well, hang on, I've got numbers for you. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Progress, 24% of the vote counted, Derek. Parakura's got 1,321, but you are still giving him a go at 1,200.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so Derek Fox will speak to in Wairoa later tonight. Kaikoura progress. Again, this is a very big electorate. Look at this on the map when you see it from the Marlborough South. Oh, no, we're going to Rangat... Eh? Well, all right, call me a liar then. Rangat... And we don't know where that came from. But anyway, Rangateke, there we go. That'll be fairly safe for Simon Power.
An all-new lineup in Rangateke, so very exciting for voters. You've got a real choice this time. You could pick someone brand new and fresh.
And there is Suzanne Bruce, of course, too. The voters have not rejected Suzanne Bruce by the looks of things, and she's polling in 3rd position there. West Coast Tasman, we have another progress there. Let's see the fortunes of Damien O'Connor. Again, see very comfortably positioned against the other O's, the O'Byrne and Pat O'Day. Wairiki progress, John Delamere's seat, Turiki Delamere's seat. Mitaranui, again, very comfortably ahead now with 24% of the vote counted ahead of Turiki Delamere. He will be disappointed by that number with 24. Palmerston North, Steve Mahari's seat, expected to be a very comfortable Labour win there. And again, just finally to Napier, and Jeff Braybrook would be expected to hold that, predicting a Labour win. And just over Anne Tolley, too, well, she's polling very well there for National against Jeff Braybrook.
She is also the highest new face on National's list, so if they don't do too badly, she may well survive. Now, we're joined now by Jeanette Fitzsimons in Thames. Jeanette, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Now, am I hearing this right, but you've got your own polling that says that you may not have enough nationwide, is that right?
Well, so far we've had a few booths phoned in by our scrutineers after the count. It's still a very small proportion of the total electorate. I can't tell you exactly how much. And so far, the swing is not big enough for us to take the seat. But it's early days yet, and it looks like it's a cliffhanger both in Coromandel and the party vote for the Greens, where we're just kind of hovering around 5%.
Well, this is going to be a very tense night for you, isn't it?
Yes.
Again, Mike Holland, though, Jeanette was saying you've had numbers in from one of the wealthier booths in Coromandel, and it looks like there was something like a 19% swing for you.
We've had one result from Whakamarama, which is in the southern part of the electorate in the Western Bay of Plenty, an area where I did badly last time, and that one booth has a 19% swing to me, which looks hopeful if it's indicative of the rest of that southern end of the electorate. We haven't had any other booths in from down there yet. However, the results we've had in from the Mercury Bay, East Coast area south of Whitianga, that's Hahe and Cook's Beach, I have done worse than last time. So we just have to wait and see how it's all going to balance out.
If we look at the polls, or think about the polls that have been coming through in the last few days, they showed the Greens party vote as high as 7%. Do you think that at the end of the day, when people got into the polling booth, they just lost the courage to take the risk?
Well, that sometimes happens. We know there's a tendency for people to revert to previous behaviour sometimes when they get in the polling place, but I don't think we've counted enough of the party vote nationwide yet to know where we're going to end up.
So that your position at the end of the night is going to be crucial to the Greens, isn't it, Jeanette? And we'll stay having a close look at your seat through the night. We've got a Hamilton East progress now. This, again, Tony Steele pulling ahead of, again, just 6% of the vote counted. Tony Steele polling 664. Diane Yates, Labour's Women's Affairs spokesperson, again, a sitting MP, 612 at the moment. From Mana, Graham Kelly's seat, very much the old Porirua seat. Mark Thomas, of course, is the Wellington Central candidate who, on Jim Bolger's request or instructions, pulled out of Wellington Central in the last electorate. Mark Thomas is standing there, but Graham Kelly should win Mana quite comfortably. And Api Malu, of course, is the Māori Pacific candidate. He's the young man who appears in the Wins, the very successful Wins commercials on television with his remarkable smile. A progress from Dunedin South. David Benson Pope is the Labour candidate, not an MP yet, but again, that's very firmly going to be a Labour win. Jenny Bloxham may well be disappointed at that, but again, she's a list MP for New Zealand First. Port Waikato, perhaps one of the most beautiful electorates physically, geographically in the country. Paul Hutchison is leading for National. Shouldn't be any surprises there. Paul Hutchison is a, now I can't remember his age exactly, I read it today, but he's an obstetrician and a gynaecologist standing in Port Waikato. Again, quite a big sort of a seat to service there. Dunedin North, Pete Hodgson, safe as a house, no worries about that. One of the largest Labour electorates in the country, and I think the poorest electorate in the country as well. It is the lowest average income electorate in the country. Another progress, Rotorua. Stephanie Chadwick calls herself Steve Chadwick, but Stephanie Chadwick for Labour. Now, look at that. Now, that with 5%, again, only 5% counted, but Max Bradford will be may be concerned. That's his seat, and he's the sitting member at the moment, but he might be concerned about that. Stephanie Chadwick, of course, would be the second MP to come from Karamu High School in Hastings. Stephanie was in the 4th form when I was in the 3rd form, so that's the way that is looking at the moment in Rotorua. Hugh, let's have a look at the layout, how we think it might be.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Paul. Let's get that worm behind me wriggling right away, because it tells us an interesting story now. You can see the early wiggles, a very definite pattern, 9% of the vote counted. Extend that now to our predictions. Fill in the percentages. And we convert that straight away. You can see the Greens are still on 5. This time they're slightly over. If we convert that to the qualifiers and the seats in the House, we should see a very interesting change. Nigel spoke earlier about the Greens. There they come in with 7. United is in there. Look at where the effect of those things. Labour's lost a couple, down from 50. National's lost 1, down from 40. Alliance about the same. ACT's lost 1. New Zealand First have lost 1 or 2. And the Greens have picked up all the difference. That's where the story of the night is. And we're seeing it for the first time right there.
Good. I
well,
think...
Matt McCartan, you would be a little bit happier about that. At least now the Alliance is looking like it's going to run 3rd place.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought as the smaller boos have come in, you know, of course, that we aren't doing so well on those, but as the provincial ones come in, I think you'll start to see us sort of track upwards a bit. and I think we're on for 10%, hopefully a little higher.
So, William, let's come to you. We saw Jeanette Fitzsimons there talking about Coromandel. She's not at all comfortable now that she's going to hold that seat. Do you have any information about how your candidate, Murray McLean's going to do?
Well, nothing new, but what really is interesting about what Jeanette said was that she's losing ground in Whitianga and Tairua. That really is a surprise. So I think it's too early to decide. I think what we're seeing through the results overall is a lot of those votes in the Murray seats going back to Labour. And that really is what is making the difference to the Labour vote at the moment.
So, Nick Strauss, the ACT voted about 7%. That's a lot lower than you would have been looking at. You were looking for about 15, weren't you?
Well, we were hopeful of 15. I think once the big Auckland booths come in, you know, we got a lot of support later in the night, 3 years ago when those Auckland booths came in, and I think that'll push us up toward, you know, 10%.
Mike Williams?
Linda, we simply haven't heard from the big cities yet. I just noted some progress. There's 27% of Hauraki counted. That's a whole collection of tiny little booths. There's 17% of Clutha Southland. That's a whole collection of tiny little booths. Now, when you get to the North Shore, which is big booths, 3.2%. We simply haven't heard from the cities yet.
Oh, but you would have been pleased to see that Rotorua result.
Yeah, I think it's a thumping.
And so Max Bradford will lose his seat?
I think on those early numbers, I think so. We need to see more.
And we will indeed. Back to you, Paul.
Yes, I understand Steve Chadwick took a walk through Rotorua the other day with Labour's candidate in Wairiki, and they were both very well received by people. Now, Zara Potts is with us from Christchurch, from Wigram, from Jim Anderton's house, is that, or from the office, Zara?
From the office. We're standing out here in front of the electorate office.
And anybody there, apart from the person on the telephone inside we can see, just answering the phone?
Well, we've got a room full of media in one room, and in the other room we've got Jim Anderton out the back, and he's closely glued to his computer awaiting results. But it's quite quiet. It's got quite quiet over the last hour with few results coming through, really.
Where's Mr Anderton having his supporters? Are they going to be there, or will he be at a hall somewhere?
They're at the hall. Pretty much it's just party people around here. It's quite quiet, and I think he's not going to make a move until he gets a clear result through. But pretty much all the supporters are at the hall at the moment, waiting for him to come down. Waiting, and they might well be pleased with what they see so far. But again, as Mike Williams says, we have not really heard from the big cities. We have a progress on Wigram, and we can examine that for you now. An alliance when absolutely safe as a house. They're 9% counted so far. Linda, just before we go to Linda, can we have a look at that Northcote progress? Because Labour had high hopes of that, and I think that'll be one of the seats which the panel would like to see. Now we've got a Taranaki King Country, that'll be national. No, I've got nothing. No, I can't do that for you. Linda, we're back to you in the panel.
All right, well, you mentioned Northcote, and I know the panel here are looking closely. Any signals about Northcote yet?
Well, I'm just reading what's up on your screen, which says Northcote progress, National and Labour close. We sort of expected that, but I'd be very interested to see some results if you've got a progress.
Not yet, but we will have one fairly soon, I would hope. Let's talk about Max Bradford's seat. Sir William, with you, is that one seat that National was thinking you might lose?
Well, it's a battle, and I think on the basis of the numbers that have come through, it's too early to say. I mean, you can get particular polling places that can really distort the trends. I would be very surprised if Max Bradford released that seat.
All right, we do have Northcote, actually. Here we go. Let's have a look. Ian Revel, 552, and Hartley, 452, 9.7% of the vote, and it is going to be close in that seat, but you are, Mike Williams, hoping to knock Ian Revel off, aren't you?
No, I was told by the locals in Northcote that they thought they could. I don't have any particular axe to grind. That is going to be close.
Pam, you're looking at these results so far, and the Greens, the closeness of the Greens.
But my overall vibe is that in the last couple of weeks we've been told how passionless and dull this campaign's been. This is wildly exciting. There are hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders at barbecues and around the tally, and this is all so up in the air. I mean, there's very early percentages of the votes. And in some ways, because the protagonists were dull, I think it's actually been, this is starting to show it's being voted on issues and policies. I'm finding this totally riveting. So there goes the passionless election campaign theory. This is a good night, you know?
Simply because we just don't know who's going to be there at the end of the day at this point in time, although it is looking like, as you were saying, Matt, at the beginning, Labour and the Alliance, will you need New Zealand First on these numbers at the moment?
God,
well, if the Greens aren't there, if the Greens aren't there...
Oh, the Greens, I mean, look, I think it's pretty clear. Labour, the Alliance and the Greens will get overwhelmingly past the 50% mark tonight. I think, you know, I mean, let's just say it. What you've got now is now a competition between, or a contest between Labour and Alliance on their own, or Labour and Alliance with needing the support of the Greens. Look, I know the Coromandel that Jeanette and Emma are obviously biting their nails. I think it's fine, you know. I mean, those towns are going to come in soon, and I'd be surprised if they lose it, and I think they'll get 5%.
What do you think, Nick?
The two most important figures of the night are really Labour and National. Now, those figures have been almost static. Labour 36, now climbing up 36.8, National on 30. Now, I don't think they're going to move greatly, and I think that's the sort of bedrock of who's going to be the government. That's bad news for National, great news for Labour. The rest of the action's really going to be between the Alliance Act and the Greens, the wastage in Christians, etc. Just where that goes, that's when the big Auckland boos, I think, are going to hit. But I don't think you're going to see Labour climb. Maybe you'll see them climb a little bit more up past 36, but National seems to be stuck on 30. Those numbers just aren't moving.
All right, and we'll come back for a little bit more arm wrestling later, but back to you, Paul. Oh, hold on.
Spoken like an Australian. New Zealand vote shares do change dramatically during the night.
And you're not happy with 36. You're going to go higher than 36.
But I'm saying that in Australia, vote shares do not change much from, well, beginning of the night to the end. In New Zealand, it's traditional that they do.
So it is...
They have actually been changing. I mean, National has been gradually moving up. So I think it's a bit early to call that gap. The gap is smaller than what the polls were indicating.
We asked him to come because we wanted someone to be positive about National, and we found the right man. Paul, back to you.
Indeed, always can be counted on as being positive about National and the fortunes of any government he belongs in. Now, Taranaki, King Country, the progress, we have a progress for you there. No surprise there, but again, nearly 40% of the vote counted, comfortable National. Karapiro, again, these are provincial seats. We're still not hearing from the big cities. Karapiro, I think we will have a progress on. Lindsay Tish, former National Party president, expected to win ahead of Paul Cronin there. Again, Labour well up, though, but we're predicting a National win. To one of the Maori seats, the East Coast Old Eastern Maori seat. Oh, no, hang on, Clutha Southland. No surprises there either. Leslie Soper, who is a cousin, I believe, of Barry Soper, the Radio Network's political commentator, but Bill English, comfortably positioned there. Ikura Rafiti now, and we see Parakura Horomia holding... My gosh, that is looking close. That is very tough. Derek Fox is gaining there some ground, just over 32% of the vote counted, but Labour had high hopes for Parakura Horomia. They may still do, but... watch that, there's about 50, just under 50 votes between him and Derek Fox at the moment. Now, the referenda on the fewer MPs, how do we go? First of all, on the fewer MPs, 80% want fewer MPs, but again, the referenda, both of them are non-binding, but only 13% of the votes counted so far, but that's holding steady all the way. And on the toughest sentences, look at that. People are in no doubt at all over whether they want to see tougher sentences, longer sentences, and people put away for violent crimes like home invasion, random beatings, kept away. Auckland Central. Now we're starting to get a read on the cities. Judith Tizard is comfortably positioned ahead of Sandra Lee. We're expecting a Labour win. And Nando Tanjos attracting, so far, with 10% of the votes counted, sufficient votes to put him in 4th place. Wigram again, Germanderton. We have a progress there for you. 12% of the vote counted. Germanderton comfortably positioned. And Oharu Belmont, Peter Dunn's seat, the seat he must win. And again, with no national candidate. And Derek Best polling there for Labour. Catherine Ajari is a former broadcaster. She's Richard Prebble's press secretary. We should also say there really about Peter Dunn. You know, the interesting thing about him, he was hoping so much, and he's not look like he's going to get his companions in the House on this particular early reading. But you know, he's very effective, isn't he, in the way, without any fuss, without any controversy, without any media predicting whether the Nats are going to stand somebody down, he gets the job done, and he's effective while there is a national government. Yep.
But he is allied now too closely to National, and if there is a change of government, Peter Dunn is going to find that his status changes somewhat dramatically too, because he will be a lone, independent, essentially, backbencher.
But he's effective, and of course numbers tell the whole story. I mean, the numbers are everything, aren't they? Who knows how needed Peter Dunn
Now, I wanted to raise something with this is something the panel said, shared with me just as I was leaping from one place to another. And this is an interesting thought, and we know that MMP is fiendishly complicated and can set your brain into a teaser. But here is one for you. Currently, Labor are doing so well in the seats, they may well get more seats electorally, in other words, more MPs elected than their 36% share, if that's what it ends up to be, than their 36% share of the vote entitles them to. Now, that would be, then they would get no list MPs because they wouldn't need a top-up. If they had no list MPs, the Deputy Leader of Labor, Michael Cullen, who is not standing, but is only standing on the list at number 2, will not be in Parliament.
Hello.
Think about that one.
We'll need to discuss that later in the evening, of course, because that could be a shocker. Christchurch Central of Progress, there you see Tim Barnett of Labor, predicting a Labor win, and Te Tai Tonga, 2-1, his vote continues to be well below that of Mahara Okoroa. So, as you say, Linda, he didn't go on the list, and he could be, well, he looks like a gone burger at the moment with half the vote counted.
Dog ticker.
Yeah, pardon?
Excuse me, a colloquial phrase we use around parliamentary circles.
Do we have a quick... Wariki, there you go, Turiki Delame, he'll be very disappointed by that as well. The Maori seats are going back to Labor, except where Derek Fox is giving Parakura Horomia a go on the East Coast, in the old Eastern Maori seat, Ikara Rafiti. Decision 99 continues. Hopefully soon we start to hear from the cities what the people in the cities are going to say. That's in a few minutes.
We understand that the last thing to be heard on the in-flight voice recorder was, "Where the hell are we?"
Erebus, 20 years later.
Mr. Justice Martin says that I had to listen to an orchestrated litany of lies.
I think it cost him his life in the end.
The secret weapon behind Australia's phenomenal sporting success.
What has turned so many Australians into world beaters?
And tough love, Kiwi style.
There was a chain in the garage, so I went and grabbed the chain.
60 Minutes, 7:30 Sunday on 1.
Covering up isn't the only way to deal with skin that's lost its firmness and elasticity. Now, Vaseline Intensive Care Skin Firming Treatment has been formulated to moisturise and smooth, while it improves skin elasticity and suppleness. In 14 days, your skin will look and feel firm and smooth. From Intensive Research comes Vaseline Intensive Care Skin Firming Treatment. Smooth, firm-looking skin.
After lunch, it's hands on head time. Clap your hands, hands on head. And if you've got smelly, wet armpits, the kids notice it straight away. Total chaos. It kept me fresh and natural. I didn't have to look and think, oh my God, I can't put my hands on my head.
Only Dove deodorant offers the most effective ingredients for maximum dryness and 1/4 moisturising cream to take care of your skin.
I live in shorts and tracksuit pants at school because I teach sport mainly. It's nice to have something on that still makes you feel like you're a woman.
Hurry into Harvey Norman for great value electrical deals like these. Pay a low $199 for the Sanyo VCR, $199. That's unbelievable. A Fisher & Paykel fridge freezer. This is a super buy at $799. That's right, $799. Save $200 on Pioneer panel speakers at $799. Available in black and beach. When it's great value, unbelievable offers and fantastic savings you're after. Come to Harvey Norman, your electrical specialist.
So we have just rushed back from the other studio, Linda and I, to where we were talking to the panel about this possibility that if Labor get 40 seats tonight, then they won't get any list MPs. And so Linda's gone back into the studio with the panel to discuss this, to sort this out. And while she is doing so, Coromandel, we have a progress and that is looking a bit close to call at the moment. But again, you see only 2% of the vote counted, but Jeanette Fitzsimons will not see that figure and Express be jumping in the air with jubilation. But again, a very low count at the moment. We've got a, we've got a Wellington Central progress for you. I hope to be able to let you know what's going there, because that's one of those key seats. Richard Preble's going to be watching that. We don't have it, unfortunately, at this particular point in time. But Linda, let's talk to the panel about this phenomenon, which could see Michael Cullen not there, number 2 on the list.
All right, now, Matt McCartan, this is your idea. Some of the Labor people in the room are already saying that you're causing a bit of trouble, but talk us through it, which may well be a sign of things to come.
Well, I've been thinking about this all week, and it seemed to me as that no one else was sort of pegging up. I had as that Labor could win 42 seats. which will need is they would need over 37% for any of their list candidates to get in. Because if you win, and I've just gone through it now, the percentages on the board is about nearly 37%. Now, on there at the moment, they're on to win 40 seats, and I think there's about 2 or 3 others which are up for grabs. Now, if that happened, they would need over 37.5% to actually get any list seats. Now, Mike Cullen is number 2. Margaret Wilson's number 9. If they don't, if more electorate seats get win, and now our results are coming in from our indicator booths in the cities, is that Labor is winning big in the cities. So if they actually winning in the cities, they could pick up to 44 seats, and then you'd need to have about 39% of the party vote to win any list seats. So
well, of course, all the way through in the polls, what you saw was this imbalance between the electorate vote and the party vote. You saw that basically voters really liked the Labor candidates, but they liked them a lot more than they liked the Labor Party. Nick, are you familiar with this scenario?
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the interesting things that we've seen all year is the fact that people are now understanding their party vote chooses the government, and it almost means you've got a sort of licence to go vote for the person you think is going to do the best job for you locally. That's why we saw sort of strange things in some of our research, like people voting Richard Prebble for the constituency and Alliance on the list. I mean, it's true, but I saw it with my own eyes. People volunteering that they did it and they'd do it again.
You don't want to meet that person.
Not in a dark alleyway.
They were charming, well-informed people.
But, so William, if I can bring you into the discussion, I mean, this is one of the kind of things, this is one of the reasons why at Parliament, MPs really do have 2 kinds of status, don't you? I mean, an electorate MP is still more highly regarded, like it or not, than a list MP.
One of the interesting things about this campaign has been that in many of the electorates there's been no contest on the constituency side. That's been true by old electorate of Port Waikato. I mean, there's been no real effort to dislodge Paul Hutchison from the constituency. So all of the votes have been, give us your party vote. The Alliance have been campaigning on that, Labor's been campaigning on that, ACT's been campaigning on that. Now, that'll be true in a large number of seats. I don't think Matt's anywhere near correct. I don't think Labor's going to get 46.
That wouldn't be a first time that you had that view, would it?
But he's just playing games with the audience at the moment. I don't think that is going to happen.
He's just trying to put the fear of God up Michael Cullen.
But it's an interesting scenario. It's an interesting scenario.
Is Mike on the phone to him?
I mean, in politics...
Mike Williams has disappeared, I have to tell you, because he is ringing Michael Cullen and reassuring him that it's going to be okay.
I've rushed off for consultation. However, look, that politics is about learning to count. And all I'm just saying, on the screens at the moment, that Labor, I think, is on, and I worked it out on Friday, I thought they'd get between 40 and 44 seats. It looks like they're going to put the Māori seats up, which is going to actually take them up to that. If the indicator booths are saying the cities are doing well, it is possible that Labor could win 44 seats. I'm just saying, as an observation, is you need then almost 38% to get any list seats. Simple
you have made your terrifying thought to Dr. Cullen. We have to go back to Paul Holmes. Back to you, Paul.
Well, it's a fascinating business. In the last election, National won 30 electorate seats, and they got 14 list seats. Labor won only 26 seats, so they got a total of 37. Wellington Central, too close to call at the moment. Richard Prebble is just ahead of Marion Hobbs. Again, not even 10% of the vote counted yet, but Richard Prebble ahead, easing ahead of Marion Hobbs, but too close to call. We've got Toriki John Delamere in Rotorua. Disappointed by the numbers we've been broadcasting, John?
Yeah, it looks like there's a big swing to Labor, Paul, though I think Derek Fox will win Ikaroa Rāwhiti on the special votes.
All right, then, and we've got a Waiariki progress. John, I don't know if you can see it, but we hope to be able to show you this, but the numbers for Toriki Delamere are not good with half the vote counted. That's, I mean, that's a big shift back to Labor, Toriki.
Yeah, no, it suggests a big shift back to Labor. It's interesting to Ikaroa Rāwhiti, though, and, if that's the way it holds up, that's the, the voice of the people, and as I told Mitta the other day, if he does get in, I'll be there to assist if he needs that.
Very good indeed. Tauranga, we can go to now to Doug Willerton, New Zealand First President. I hope that we can make contact very shortly with Doug Willerton. There he is at New Zealand First headquarters in Tauranga. How do you read it for New Zealand First, Douglas?
Well, all we've ever said in New Zealand First is that we would do better than the polls have predicted, and that's showing up, and we're confident that that will be the case.
You agree with the panel that we're going to see your numbers decline through the evening?
Look, at this stage, I'm not making any predictions whatsoever because it is still relatively early on in the piece.
Yeah.
You know, I'd just say that we predicted we'll do better than the polls, and I think that'll be the case in the end of the night.
Linda, Michael Holland is at Jeanette Fitzsimon's headquarters in Coromandel.
He isn't, in fact, but if that Doug Williamson is a wily old fox, in fact. Quite a quiet MP. You won't have heard much about him, but he is New Zealand First President, and he does have the ear of Winston Peters. He always knows what's going on, if you know what I mean. So let's see if he's proved right in the vote.
Doing our best now to go to Gisborne, where Tu Wyllie, the Te Tai Tonga MP, may be making a fateful speech regarding his career. This will be the first conceding of the evening because that Te Tai Tonga, Tu Wyllie.
There's a progress report first up, and of course, yes, it shows with 50% of the vote counted just on, the Labour candidate well ahead. Tu Wyllie, you're joining us now, I understand. Hello, can you hear me too?
Good evening, yeah, I can hear.
Is it a done dinner too?
Yeah, I think so, Paul, and, you know, I've done my best. I've got nothing to be ashamed about. I congratulate Labour and Mahara. I wish Mahara all the best, and I hope Labour delivers all the many things it's promised our people, and if they do, well, I'll certainly support them in the work that they're going to be doing for our people.
He came from so far back in just about 4 or 5 weeks. He was 20 points down 6 weeks ago, and look what he's done tonight. It's extraordinary. Did you have a feeling something could happen there?
No, not really, Paul. I've always been sceptical about polls, you know, and I suppose Jeanette Fitzsimons is wondering what the heck's going on as well. So you can't tell with polls and with people, you know. I think people sort of say one thing to your face and then they go and do something else in the privacy of a polling booth. But you know, that's what this game is about, and you've got to take your wins with your losses. I know what it's like to lose, and I think it's important to lose with dignity, Paul, and wish Labour and whoever's in government all the very best.
I'm sure that will be appreciated as well. Do you agree with Tuku Morgan? He was on the other night, made quite a controversial remark, very interesting remark. He said in Pākehā politics, you know who your enemy is. In Maori politics, you never see the enemy coming.
Oh, yeah, I suppose there's some truth to that. But at the end of the day, Paul, you know, you get judged by your efforts and what you've done. I'm disappointed that perhaps I've been penalised, maybe perhaps for what I haven't done rather than what I have done. So, but you know, I mean.
Do you mean by that you've been penalised for the activities of others in your party?
No, not so much that, but perhaps you know, maybe I got penalised for being too loyal. You know, I mean, but having said that, I have no regrets about that.
I was just about to ask you that. I mean, that was a hard time for you, wasn't it, when the coalition collapsed and the other Māori MPs left New Zealand First? You stayed behind.
Absolutely, because I had some very strict instructions by somebody living just behind me. Yeah, and my constituents, and at the end of the day, you know, Linda, it's really about living by the standards you set for yourself. And as I say, I can hold my head up high, and I've done the best possible job that I can by the Te Tai Tonga constituents.
What do you think is going to happen to your party, New Zealand First, from here on in?
I think they'll survive, and I think they'll take the lessons from what's happened tonight and hopefully rebuild from this. I need to consider my own future, and I tell you what, I don't think it's going to be politics. This is too hard. I'd sooner be on the bottom of a Canterbury ruck than this stuff.
Well, you have conceded very graciously, of course, and there was some criticism the All Blacks did not concede defeat to the French particularly graciously, and I'm sure there could be a welcoming if you were serious about that application too, Wyllie.
Yeah, and I wish you all the best with your issue of health as well, Paul. Wish you all the best, mate.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
So Tu Wyllie conceding at his mother's place in with the Hollyhocks in Gisborne. Now we can go to Michael Holland at Jeanette Fitzsimons' headquarters. Tu Wyllie made mention, Michael Holland, that yes, and you can see they're much quieter at the Green headquarters there at Jeanette Fitzsimons' place, Michael.
Indeed they are. Frankly, Paul, it's up and down and all over the place here in Coromandel. There are some very wild fluctuations, some big swings to the Greens and some big swings against the Greens. Now, this information is all very early and according to Green Party scrutineers, but when it's all boiled down, it actually suggests a 0.5% swing to National. Now, bear in mind that Jeanette Fitzsimons needs a 5% swing if she's to take this seat from the incumbent National MP, Murray McLean. But something tells me that this Coromandel roller coaster ride is far from over.
Indeed, that you may well be right. Let's have a Wellington Central progress report now. No, indeed, we haven't got...
But we understand that Hobbs and Marion Hobbs and Richard Prebble are neck and neck again.
And neck.
We've got...
we do, in fact. Here it is. And, well, neck and neck. In fact, it's a tie, and you can't have two MPs representing a seat, and they don't have penalty goal kickoffs or anything else like we saw in the football earlier this evening. So that is a nail-biter.
You've got Charlotte there at headquarters, have you?
We have. Charlotte Glennie joins us now. Charlotte, what is the atmosphere like?
Well, there's about 200 people here, Linda. Earlier on, people were predicting that there'd be about 500 here. So it's certainly not quite as many as they expected. The atmosphere is quite low-key. I'd almost go so far to say subdued, but people are having a good time, but they're really watching the results very, very closely, both the ACT party vote and the Wellington Central vote, where, as you say, Richard Prebble and Marion Hobbs are pretty much neck and neck.
Now, we saw Richard Prebble arrive a little earlier in the evening. What's he doing now?
Well, he's disappeared, Linda. He does have a penthouse here at the Museum Hotel, penthouse suite, which he is in at the moment, we understand. We did ask him to come down to do an interview with us a wee while ago, but he didn't want to. He wants to watch the results by himself with his family and things like that. He was down here for about 20 minutes when you saw him earlier. He pretty much sort of made a quiet exit, and we haven't seen him since.
Now, we hope shortly to have a progress from Tauranga, but first we can go to Phil O'Sullivan with Marion Hobbs. I think it might just take a couple of minutes to get a picture of Phil there he is there, Phil O'Sullivan, Marion Hobbs. So that'll be tense time there, neck and neck, exactly the same figure at the moment with, I think, wasn't it, in the 12% counted, Phil?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a few murmurs earlier when the vote was only 1.8%. Marion Hobbs looked like she was a little bit behind, but there's a real hubbub here at the moment. There's quite a bit of excitement. Marion Hobbs arrived earlier to what seemed like a victor's welcome. A bit of quiet after that, but that last result that just came in, there was a roar that went through here. I'm having to put my hand over my ear. There's still a real buzz going on behind me.
Yeah, it is. I agree with Pam Corkley, you know, that for a passionless election, I didn't feel it was passionless. I felt it was one where people were very quiet and just making up their minds and quietly watching, and the leaders, the parties, were very much exposed to the news media. The newspapers did a great job this time. Television, I think, did a great job, and radio as well. And this is a cliffhanger. This is a nail-biter. And it's as if, in this election, I sort of felt as if the forces of both the left and the right, the key forces in the political spectrum, have decided they have to come out today and vote and make a stand. As if we had a
contest. We had a contest this time because both the left and the right will really have clear differences between the two, and you knew what you were getting one way or the other. Hugh, first of all, now we really need to see this. Tauranga. The first time we've seen this evening, I think. Progress only 1.8% in, but Winston Peters ahead by 6.
Hello, very healthily placed.
What?
But again, Catherine Regner, Margaret Wilson still strong as well.
Still right up there. That is a 3-horse race, you've got to say, at this point in time.
Let's put Jeanette Fitzsimons out of her misery a bit. Can we help? Coromandel. Too close to call. We're actually, don't ignore that on the bottom of the screen, we're calling that too close. But Murray McLean, an MP since 1996, he'll be very relieved to be having a look at that. But Jeanette Fitzsimons will be very patient. Margaret Hawkes will look as if the tactical voting has gone
Wellington
on there.
Central, same as before. Too close to call. Again, ignore what you see on the bottom because things are moving very, very rapidly. 1138, 2 ways round.
Just before we come across to you, Hugh, Rotorua Progress, Stephanie Chadwick there looks as if Max Bradford is taking a thrashing. Now, that would be a major swing. Stephanie Chadwick of Labour and of Max Bradford there, of course, the architect of the power reforms, the controversial power reforms. Took a
tertiary education.
Took a bit of a risk in going to the universities and exposed himself to students yelling at him and so forth on the television.
Yep.
Nigel Roberts.
Paul, just going back to what we were seeing in Wellington Central, I think it's important to note that this is an electorate that's clearly going to be decided on special votes, and at the last election, ACT did a considerably better job than Labour in getting specials in. The specials were more favourable to ACT than the election night votes. So I think that unless Marion Hobbs pulls some distance ahead, she's in trouble.
Why is that in Wellington Central, the special votes are so important? Is that because it's the second well-off seat in the country and people are overseas? Is that...
No, special votes are very important in the whole country. Roughly 10% of all votes are special votes, and one of the traditional patterns in New Zealand politics has been that National has generally had an advantage in special votes of about 2%, and Labour has had a disadvantage of about 2 to 2.5%, so that Labour underperforms in special votes and National overperforms, and we saw in the last election ACT, of course, it was its first election it contested. It was the only electorate it won, but ACT overperformed in special votes in Wellington Central.
And of course, it was fascinating to note, too, that 55,000 special votes were disallowed in the last election. Why? Why so high? Do we know?
Well, special votes, lots of people cast special votes who are not on the rolls, and then another group of people cast special votes without filling the special vote administrative forms in correctly, and then their votes are disallowed. It's quite a hoop to go through, and as you say, that's a fair proportion of special special votes, but you've got to consider that about 200,000 special votes are cast and counted.
We have an Otaki
progress report, and there we are. We've got. We are expecting or predicting at this point that Labor will win that seat. Judy Keel up against Roger Sowry, another Cabinet Minister. He is high on the list, though, and should be fine and dandy, but still a bit of a defeat there. And we're joined now by Jackie Ma, who, as we saw earlier, is at Labor's headquarters. Jackie, any sign of Labor's leader yet?
No, not yet, but they are testing the microphones at the moment, so that's getting a bit exciting. Maybe she is coming. They're testing the sound system, but it is getting quite exciting here now. There have been cheers and screams of joy as every positive Labor result comes across on the screen. Things are sort of hotting up here a bit.
Now, we must say, too, that Jackie Ma's voice is holding up very well for somebody who's had a voice lost all day. And,
she has, in fact, I can give a little wee secret away, been closeted in her bed, taking antibiotics and other things, but there we are.
And things much calmer at Avondale, too, with the resolution of the crisis of the lift. Linda, we've got that Northcote, we've got an Otaki progress there. Northcote. Now, look at that, Labor ahead. We're not calling it yet, but they had very high hopes, Labor, for Anne Hartley, former Mayor of Birkenhead.
Up against Ian Revel, who, it has to be said, ran into a bit of trouble this time with the $40 parking ticket, had to give up the job of Deputy Speaker, not one of National's more popular MPs.
Well, it could be said that perhaps this time the parking, allocation has expired. We have Phil Goff. We have Phil Goff with us. Wasn't that good? It was very nice to laugh about it, if you don't mind me saying. We've got Phil Goff, yes, the customary chair, Phil Goff at Mount Roskill. Are you disturbed by Matt McCartan? I don't know if you picked up on Matt McCartan's analysis that if you get a good number of seats, there might be no list MPs for Labor, which would put Michael Cullen in rather a quandary, Philip.
Well, I think we'll do well, of course, in the electorate seats. We've got really quality candidates like Steve Chadwick. We've got people, Anne Hartley, David Cunliffe. They're all great people, but my prediction is still we'll get a number of people on the list, and Mike Cullen will be there, Jonathan Hunt will be there. We need those people in Parliament.
We have got an Otaki progress. No, we do not. We have Wellington Central. We have a Wellington Central progress we're trying to get up for you right now. Well, is it still neck and neck? No, now we predict.
Oh, gosh.
Well, I would think we have to be calling that neck and neck still, don't we? At this particular point in time,
50 votes ahead.
It's a savage night. You have savage night for Marion Hobbs and Richard Prebble.
And of course, if we're relying on the special votes, we need to tell you that if we're relying on the special votes to get a clarification in Wellington Central, we won't get a concession announcement on numbers like that from either of those candidates. They will want to wait till all the votes are in.
Coromandel progress now. Jeanette Fitzsimons will be looking at this, drawing much closer. We're predicting a national win, but that again is only 5% of the votes counted. Rob MacDonald not doing too well, but no, we're calling that too close to call. So Mary McLean edging ahead at the moment. And Northcote, let's go back there to Anne Hartley, where she's taking on Ian...
No, Palmerston North this time. Steve Mahoney, the sitting MP, it's a Labor seat, and we are expecting that it will be a Labor seat by the end of the evening. He'll be well pleased with that. We are looking now... Taupo.
Tutapo there. And David Steele is a national candidate, still picking a Labor win. Confusing, isn't it? Two Steeles. Mr. Steele from ACT, I think, is an accountant, and Mr. Steele from National is the accountant. To Whanganui, and we're predicting still a Labor win, but that's 40% of the vote counted. That prediction must be based, of course, on the polling booths we know, which are at Chester Borough's doing well there. And the first report in from Titirangi tonight, David Cunliffe for Labor. Now, he's one of the bright sparks, isn't he? Very much, is he an ex-merchant banker or certainly a businessman?
Yes, he is a businessman, and Labor had very high hopes for this seat from quite early on. They were expecting to knock Marie Hasler off, and at this point in time, with only 9% of the vote in, mind you, we are predicting that, in fact, Cunliffe will carry the day there. Marie Hasler will then have to rely on the list to put her into Parliament for another term. Ikaro Rafferty, one of the seats you've got to watch all night. A Labor candidate again. Ahead, not by much though, but there's nearly 50% of the vote in, and Derek Fox really is putting up a pretty good battle in that seat.
Mount Roskill progress. Phil Goff, I'm sure, will be watching this. What can we show him? We're predicting Phil Goff to win. Of course, Phil Raffles, principal of Avondale High, one of the most highly regarded principals perhaps in Auckland, certainly in Auckland, perhaps in the country. Currently, I know, undergoing treatment for his own cancer. Phil Goff, they're well ahead, however, of Phil Raffles. We're predicting the Phil Goff win. Ilam, Jerry Brownlee's seat, the Old Fendleton, Maryvale. Jerry Brownlee well ahead of Labor there. And then back to Coromandel. Do we have anything new in Coromandel? Too close, still to call. Linda.
About 100, not quite between them, but yes, it is too close. And see Robin McDonald there, just the 70 votes. As you know, the New Zealand First MP went straight into Cabinet. Now, so far down the list, she'll be looking for a new job.
Number 22 on the list. Nigel, the share, state of the parties, how do we think?
Well, let's see what the share of the party votes is. And, of course, it's the crucial party vote that stacks up. And here we can see the Labour Party has just over 37%, National just over 30%, the Alliance just under 8%, ACT just under 7%, New Zealand First 5.5%, the Greens on just under 5% by our computer. They have 4.97%, and United have 0.5%. But United, of course, Peter Dunn in a comfortable position in Oharu Belmont. Let's see how that translates into seats in the House. And you can see that if the Greens don't win Coromandel, and if the Greens stay at less than 5%, and 4.97 under the Electoral Act is not rounded up, the Greens will get no seats. And, of course, look at the consequence of that. Labour and the Alliance on these figures, with about 20% order of the votes counted, would have an overall majority. Those two parties alone would have an overall majority of 62 seats out of 120. I should say that Peter Dunn, on our current figures, is nearly 0.5%. That should easily make him avoid being an overhang MP. ACT, 9 seats there. It's got more votes than last time. Last time it was 6%. Now it's 6.7%. So ACT would bring in an extra MP into the House. The Alliance, of course, would lose some, but it's already lost some to the Greens and people who went walkabout, like Frank Grover and Alamein Kopu.
Thank you, Nigel. Well, of course, if you look at that now, we're seeing that New Zealand First vote tracking down. At the beginning of the evening, it looked like it would be as high as 7%. Now we're down to 5.5%. So tracking down as our panel expected it to do.
Yes, indeed. And the Labour Alliance then with a prediction, that'll be 62 seats, National ACT 50. But of course, even if they were to do business again with Mr Peters, that's 57, that wouldn't be enough.
62 seats, a majority, but not a comfortable one.
Well, workable enough, I would have thought. Bill English, what do you think?
Are you there, Paul?
Why do I feel I've been here before?
Yes.
You must be... It's looking... Sorry, Bill.
Sorry, Paul.
You must be disappointed then, looking as if we do have a Labour Alliance victory starting to happen, almost a drubbing.
Well, yes, we are disappointed, of course. But, look, National's been around a long time. We'll take our medicine. The voters sent a message. What I want National to do now is sit down, have a look at what went wrong, have a hard listen to the people that we've lost over the last couple of elections, and get on the long road back.
If you've got any clues at all, I know you'd want to be delicate tonight. These are very, very early days, well, they're early hours, aren't they? But where do you think, or have you had cause to think during the campaign, where do you think you might have gone wrong?
Well, look, we'll have a good hard look at that, Paul, but when you get into the government, the day you start closing doors to some people because of decisions that you make. And over 9 years, we've had a wonderful opportunity to shape New Zealand, but we've closed a lot of doors along the way.
I've got the progress.
That
yes,
tells.
Understand, Mr. English, and we've got your people there with you. In Dipton, we'll be able to see that you are very comfortably positioned, at least, so you're doing all right tonight. And Leslie Soper, well behind you, 3,423 votes for you. Bill English with 35% of the vote cast. We'll speak to you later in the evening.
Thanks, Paul.
Tauranga Linda, progress.
Indeed, let's have a look at it. This, of course, is one of those seats you've got to watch all evening. And that's why. Just 3.4% of the vote in. Winston Peters are 10 votes ahead of National's Catherine O'Regan. And if O'Regan does knock Winston Peters off, that will be one sweet trophy, because she had a bit of a battle internally, actually, to stand in that seat. There was a lot of talk early on that National would never stand a candidate against him. Of course, then the coalition collapsed and it was all on for young and old.
But again, look at that. That's not even 4% of the vote counted.
No.
To Christchurch Central, a progress, and we will see Tim Barnett comfortably placed there. Banks Peninsula was the Christchurch seat I was thinking of before. Forgive me, in Christchurch, when I said earlier in the programme some heavy hitters there. There's Banks Peninsula, and look at that. Ruth Dyson. This is very much, isn't it, the old Selwyn seat, isn't it?
It is.
And Littleton as well.
Littleton as well, and it is a real... This is an interesting seat because, of course, David Carter, the sitting MP, Ruth Dyson's got the asterisk because she's a list MP. Labour were hoping to be able to take this seat, and on this at the moment they're doing quite well, but only 10.9% of the vote in.
Yes, but very comfortably positioned. David Carter's been a very effective politician for a new politician and has done well. Keeps his mouth shut, does he not? Never any fuss with David Carter. Auckland Central, you've got there. Judith Tizard, we are picking comfortably to win there. Sandra Lee, quite well behind Judith Tizard in this particular one. We've got Duncan Garner at Shipley headquarters in Methven. Duncan, any progress? What's happening? Some disappointment there?
Yes, well, people aren't really that chipper around here. I mean, they're having supper at the moment. Still no sign of Jenny Shipley. What we're told by her miners just a couple of minutes ago is that she's now looking at 11 o'clock now, so she keeps putting it back. She certainly is described by her people as quite chipper. Is what they said. Now, certainly, she's not saying anything like Bill English just said, which seemed to look like a part concession almost.
Duncan, you've been here before, haven't you? I mean, last election, you were with Jim Bolger then, and it was a long wait.
Yeah, well, Jim Bolger last time, I think it was 11, almost half past 11 before he left the safety of his house and down into the Te Kuiti club rooms down there. And it looks like earlier in the day, Jenny Shipley was talking about 9 o'clock. Now it keeps going back, and she really wants to look at those results closely before she puts anything to paper or anything to words, really.
Yes, but we have, I suppose, we've more or less had, not a concession, but we've certainly had admission that the vote might not be going their way from Bill English. He's a very astute man. He'll be able to see the writing on the wall. Jenny Shipley, of course, naturally will want to wait until the eggs are counted, as it were, later on.
Much harder for the leader because, of course, once the leader arrives at the headquarters, there's the fanfare, they're expected to deliver the speeches, they're expected to front up to people like you and I. And it is pretty tough, actually, for the leaders from all parties on election night. And what we've seen with MMP is that they don't want to come down too early because they don't want to do what Mike Moore did a couple of elections ago, where he made that famous speech, it'll be a cold, cold night. And as it turned out, it was a very cold, cold night for him because he got it quite wrong. Yes,
indeed. Now, also we could say, too, a word about Jenny Shipley. Duncan mentioned that she is reported to be quite chipper. I can understand that, actually, because she's when it comes down to it, she's a very well-balanced person. She has the support of her family. She's got the ability to put things in perspective. I actually felt through the week that the realisation was coming to her. She wasn't going to admit that there was a plan B. But on Friday morning, I interviewed her on the radio, really, and there was a softness about her we hadn't felt perhaps for over a year. There was a kind of not a resignation, but certainly the straight-talking Jenny Shipley, the person we see in private, the pleasant person who will respond to questions rather than do the political campaigning, was there. And we all felt, actually, if I could just quickly say this, we all felt that if she'd spoken like that, she would have done better.
Coromandel, because we do want to know about the seat. At this point in time, it's still very, very close. We're saying too close to call, even though I know you can read the words predicted national win. Just bear with us. It really is unfolding. And Tauranga, one of those other great seats to watch. Whew. Still 10 votes in it, just 3.4% of the vote, and that is sure as anything too close to call.
Lee Pearson and Tauranga.
Hello, Paul. Well, since we talked earlier, the mood is sort of quieting down here as people have watched those predictions show that New Zealand First is not quite as far ahead as it was earlier in the evening. More so than last time I was here, we're seeing more and more people watch the screen, watch you and Linda, watch those figures roll in. Applause goes up when Winston Peters is ahead, but many people know here that there's just a few votes in it at the moment. Now, I understand that earlier in the evening, Winston Peters was taking a bit of a kip because he knew it was going to be a long night, and I'm not expecting him here till well after 11 o'clock, but
I think that that would be a good pick. That is a very good pick.
It's not a hard one.
It's not a hard one. We're expecting you to be up the last, actually, because I don't think Winston Peters will be the first out of the blocks in the evening.
I think he'll be waiting to see other people arrive before he does.
Oh, yes. Oh,
he
yes.
is. Well, I know that you'll be there.
Remember the famous night when he announced who he was going with in his coalition, and we were sitting there, and
we were
on
sitting
the way to the
together
theatre, he even called into the toilet to keep us waiting. But probably fair to say that Mr. Peters will wait till late.
That was a 20-minute speech, and he only declared his hand at the end. So poor old Lee Pearson is in for a night.
We have got Coromandel absolutely at the moment too close to call. Waiting for more from Wellington Central. Do we have a progress there? We'll go back to your panel shortly, Linda, but Wellington Central, we have a progress for you. Too close to call. Ignore that act when there. We're still calling it too close to call at the moment, but look at that. You see how it reverses and how it goes back and forth, how painful it is for those two hard-working candidates. Marion Hobbs, Richard Prebble, they've both gone hell for leather in that seat. Helen Clark of Mount Albert, no worries at all there. Predicting a Labour win. I wouldn't put too much hope in the fortunes tonight of Nolene Buckland. We have an Island Progress, Jerry Brownlee, you'll find well ahead there, but we're predicting a national win. Banks Peninsula, where those heavy hitters are, Ruth Dyson, David Carter, Rod Donald, the co-leader of Greens. A Labour win predicted for Ruth Dyson, so they'll be very pleased with that seat. Littleton is part of that, and David Carter will feel he has ownership of it as well. Wigram, Jim Anderton, 35% of the vote counted. We can go to Rakaya, no doubt about that seat at all. Jenny Shipley, New Zealand's first woman Prime Minister, well ahead, and nearly 30% of the vote counted. And just a quick one at Wairarapa. Yes, we haven't heard from Wairarapa tonight, but Georgina Bayer and Labour will be very disappointed with that. But again, only 13, nearly 14% of the vote counted. We're picking that Paul Henry will win. He's an interesting fellow, Paul Henry. He's a journalist, a broadcaster, and he is the fellow who disappeared into the African jungle to try and get hold of, try and find Mr. Kia some months ago. So predicting a national win there for Paul Henry, and a disappointment perhaps for Georgina Bayer. Now let's go to, did you want me to go to Nando Tanjos, or would you like me to go to Nigel? So what do you make of it, Nigel? State of the parties, the share, how's it looking?
I've got slightly shorter hair.
Yes,
the state of the parties...
But I think you'd look quite good with it done like that, with those...
It'd be a hairdresser's challenge.
Yeah.
Paul, the state of the parties, as Michael Holland said from the Greens headquarters, we've just seen the Greens all night seesawing around the 5% threshold. And here you can see the results, 37.5% for Labour, 30 again for National, 7.8 for the Alliance, ACT 6.8. New Zealand First have been tracking down for a while now, United 0.5, and the Greens 5.0, but we've got the Greens at 4.96. If they don't win Coromandel, 4.96 is not enough, and when we convert it into seats in the House and see what that looks like, with, after all, more than 25% of the election night votes counted, we should be able to get an indication of the standing in the House. Graphics a little bit slow. I'll read it off my screen. I've got, my screen, and 51 seats for Labour, 11 seats for the Alliance, the same as we saw the last time we looked at this. The position is stabilising there. 62 seats for an Alliance Labour grouping. National, 41, ACT, 9, New Zealand First, 7, United, 1, a total of course, 58 on the centre-right, if you included New Zealand First. Of course, New Zealand First, and one of the key things tonight, Paul, it seems to me, is that New Zealand First made the statement that they would support on supply the largest party. So in some ways, the key race tonight has been to become the largest party. And of that, there's never been any doubt. The results have been slow. Counting the referendums have obviously delayed the whole process. But right from the word go, Labour has been the biggest party. And if New Zealand First is back in the House of Representatives, I think it would be duty-bound, even if Labour and the Alliance didn't get enough to go over the magic 60, preferably for a government's point of view, over or at least into 61 seats.
Still, Nigel, the focus really for people, I think, of what you've just been saying is that this number is a bit of a kick in the guts for the Green Party, because they have been, I suppose, you can't blame them for being very optimistic that they would be there in the past few weeks. Nando Tanjos is with us at Auckland Central, number 5 on the list. Big disappointment, a new sobriety, I suppose, at the Green headquarters in Auckland Central, Nando.
Oh, sorry. Well, we've always known that it's going to be an exciting election, that's for sure. But the mood here is very, very positive indeed. We realise it's still early in the evening. And we've just seen a result from an Auckland Central poll that shows us showing about 14% with the party vote, and which is almost double that of the Alliance. So we still think we've got very good prospects.
Just hold there a second, Nando. I can help you out a little bit there. I don't know if you can see a television screen, but I think I've got a progress from Coromandel. Have I got a progress from... I don't have it, so still too close to call. But that would be devastating, would it not, if Jeanette didn't win in Coromandel and you came in at 4.96. You will not be there if that is indeed the figure at the end of the night.
Yeah, it'd be a pretty sad thing. I mean, whatever the result, we have to say massive respect to the Green Party people all around the country, because everyone's done a massive job. But I think with Coromandel, you've got to remember it's a very diverse electorate, and the results from different parts of the electorate are going to be quite substantially different. So we certainly haven't lost hope at this stage.
No, and no need to, because we're still calling it too close to call, although your supporters will be annoyed, I'm sure, that we've got a national win at the bottom of the screen. But we're still calling it too close to call. And look at that, Nanda, only 7.5% of the vote counted, and he's just under 100 ahead of Jeanette Fitzsimons. Of course, we're not perhaps expressing sufficient admiration for Mr McLean tonight, because you were so personable, I suppose, and you were there. It's very nice to speak to you, and we'll get back to you later in the evening. Linda, the panel, the Greens, the fate of the Greens, what's the panel think?
The fate of the Greens. Well, actually, before we come to the fate of the Greens, the one of the results that came up just a moment ago was a progress report on the Wairarapa, which showed the Labour candidate Georgina Beyer well behind the National candidate Paul Henry. And Mike Williams, I heard you shouted, "I don't believe it," you said.
No, I don't believe it. There's been quite a bit of market research. I think what you've got is again, the very small rural booths, and you haven't got Masterton, Carterton or any of these urban ones. And I didn't note actually what the progress count was, but I just noted in the seat of Coromandel they are still only at a count of 7.5%, and that means there's no Thames in it yet.
So you are still thinking that she might take that seat?
I think she will, yes.
Well, that'll be good news for her people in Thames tonight as they're watching this. The other thing, of course, is that while you're watching the television, these guys are all on the phones. Nick, what are you hearing when you're ringing around?
Well, we're hearing Epsom is too close to call. Rodney's won some booths, he's lost some booths, but it is a bit of an upset.
This is Rodney Hyde.
Yep, Rodney
in the
Hyde.
Christine Fletcher sit. See, we've got
That's
in
right.
fact, here we are. Well, look, you're exactly right. The national candidate just 30-odd votes ahead. Now, that is way too tight
Yep,
to
I mean,
call.
that is a big upset. Now, clearly, for ACT, Auckland is important. Epsom, Tamaki, Albany, Auckland Central, North Shore, Pakuranga, Northcote, all those seats last year were when we changed gear.
Well, and to put that Epsom result into some perspective, I mean, Christine Fletcher's majority, a lot of it was a personal vote, you need to know that, but her majority was the biggest majority in the country. Correct. So they have really taken, the national candidate there has really taken a bit of a swerve. Matt McCartan, what are you hearing on the phones?
Well, I think that Labour is cleaning up in the big towns, and that's as predicted. I think their party vote will go up. I mean, at the moment, the current results we've got at the moment would suggest they wouldn't get any list seats. However, I'm predicting that as the night goes on, my mate here will get his party vote up, and he'll save Mike Cullen and Margaret Wilson and a few others.
Matt's stirring here. Your own system is projecting 14 list seats for Labour right now.
Mike, that's the alliance stirring. You better get used to it. Pam Corkery.
I think, you know, as the boys play together and pat each other on the back and, you know, generally remind me what a scummy, nasty profession it was, I think the most profound part of the last clips is Bill English. What a sixth ring of purgatory Benedict Arnold move to concede defeat before checking with his leader.
You must have gone to a convent, did
Yeah,
you?
I just thought that's absolutely extraordinary. So early in the piece and not his call to make, and obviously a man looking forward to the future.
So, William, very quickly, what did you make of what Bill English had to say?
Well, I think he's being realistic about the trends in the polls. But I mean, what we're looking at now is New Zealand First very steadily heading south, and I mean, New Zealand First will disappear if Peters doesn't win Tauranga. And that's actually going to cause a redistribution. And I think with the trends we're getting
you're right.
is that, you know, Labour's going to end up with about 38%. National's holding pretty steady on just over 30%. And I mean, it's going to be a knife edge in the House. I mean, it's going to be a nightmare to govern under these conditions.
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Paul, back to you.
Well, he's not so sure of a clear government given the nod by the people tonight. We've got a Wellington Central progress. What is happening there? Let's see it on the screen. We've got Marion Hobbs standing by, but Marion, I don't know if you can see a screen, but we've got 25% of the vote in, and some of those key booths for ACT look to be coming in. 2,137 at the moment for Richard Prebble. Marion Hobbs, 1,823. That's 25% of the vote counted. Marion, is that a worry?
I don't know. I need to really know which booths are being counted, and at the moment it is so close. It's very tense, and it's very tense in here at the moment as we see what's actually happening. I've got a fabulous team around me and very happy. So I'm actually most delighted because it looks as though Labour's going to be government, and that's the most important thing.
Yes, we were talking to Richard Prebble about this earlier, the agony that today must be for you. We were talking to Richard Prebble about the difficulties of election day, particularly in a close race like this one. I imagine, we were saying to Richard Prebble, you know, it must be agony, but it also must be an exhilarating sort of a day as well, the results coming in, you know, the stuff of politics.
Yes, it is exhilarating. It's really exciting in a way, Paul, because it is actually the stuff of politics, and I've never been in such a close race and such an exciting race in here. We'll see what actually happens. Remember, we have about 9% of our votes are special votes. This is an exceptional electorate. I think we'll be down to the wire. I'll be surprised if we actually get a clear result tonight.
Good, Marion. And Linda, Palmerston North final. We've got a result now. This is Steve Mahari.
First final of the evening, in fact.
First final, Steve Mahari, number 3 on Labour's list, and but also in the electorate of Palmerston North, so he's going to be safe there, so he's in. We have Nigel. A look again at the state of the state of the parties.
Well, let's look at the share of the votes, of course, and if we look at the screen behind me, we can see them stack up again. The Labour Party. Here it comes, the Labour Party, 37.9. As the panellists in the other room said, it's tracking up very slightly, nearly 38% there. The Alliance 8, again, also tracked up slightly, broken that 8% barrier. ACT still between 6 and 7%, higher than last time. New Zealand First still tracking down. And the Greens there, clearly you can see them now 4.9 on my computer screen, 4.95, clearly below the threshold. I should just mention that the early booths from Coromandel, incidentally, did contain one indicator booth that we put a lot of weight on, a special booth that's been statistically sampled by Hugh and his team at Massey University. And it does seem to me that the Greens are in trouble in Coromandel, although, you know, it's the closest of all races. And if we could have a look at how they've translated into the seats, if we could see if that goes. And here we are, 51-11 again. The position, you can see how stable it is, Paul, for 3 calls of the party vote, and we're at a party vote now of about 30%. We haven't changed the distribution of the seats in Parliament. Something that would change it, and would change it dramatically, is the Greens clearing the 5% threshold, because that would take seats away from Labour, it would take seats away from National, and probably the Alliance.
All right, well, as you can see, it really is a cliffhanger in some of those key seats, and Charlotte Glennie is at one of those seats. She's at the ACT headquarters in Wellington Central. Charlotte, what's the mood now?
Well, a very short time ago, when those results showing Richard Prebble 300 votes ahead came out, there was a bit of a round of applause from the ACT supporters here at the headquarters. But they are watching the televisions very, very closely for those results, and really they are so neck and neck that no one knows at all which way it's going to go.
Well, stay with us for a moment, because we'll be able to hear the reaction here. This is the latest on Wellington Central. It has Richard Prebble ahead, 2,137. Marion Hobbs, 1,823. Still too close to call, but that is 25% of the vote.
Hugh.
Yes, thank you, Nigel. That Wellington Central result there, of course, is one of the places where we have our key indicator booths. And although there's been some doubt about the prediction all night, I've been quietly confident that at the end of the night we may well see that's true. Nigel spoke earlier about the specials. Let's go for ACT there.
All right, to Tauranga now, a seat of considerable interest in Tauranga progress. What can we see from our chart? We'll see who's at the top there so far, with nearly 10% of the vote counted. And look at that. He's there all the way, right just ahead of Catherine O'Regan, Margaret Wilson in a very handy 3rd position there. But again, only 10% of the vote counted. Depends where those booths are. Titai Tokoro, the Northern Maori seat, David Samuels well ahead of his New Zealand First candidate. But a good New Zealand First loyalty remains in Tau Henry will be disappointed with that. We're picking a Labour. When that's over 50% of the vote counted, David Samuels will become the electorate MP there.
Another one of the Māori seats, let's have a look at it, Wairiki. This is an interesting seat because this is, of course, Tuariki Delamere's seat. Well, he is not expected to hold that now. 70% of the vote virtually in, and the Labour candidate is now well ahead. That's a disappointment for Mr Delamere.
Well, he's been dismissed there in very short order, hasn't he?
Another one of the Māori seats, Te Tai Hauaru. Of course, Nanaia Mahuta, an MP already, list MP this time, she's going to be very pleased with that. One of the quieter Labour MPs. She really sat in the backbenches, kept her mouth shut, learnt the ropes quietly around her. They'll be expecting a little bit more from her this time round, though, as a second-term MP.
And but nevertheless has indicated an interest and already has responsibilities for Maori education, Nanaia Mahuta. And then you've got West Coast Tasman, Damien O'Connor, very comfortably ahead, no doubt about that. Look at that, there'll be a final shortly. 85% of the vote counted, and that's a significant majority. Look at the size of that seat you have to work as well. Taranaki King Country, Shayna Dern, Shayna Dern, who won the seat in the by-election when Jim Bolger retired from Parliament, 70% counted. Nick Smith's seat in Nelson. Let's have a look at what's happening there.
Now, this should be an interesting seat. Well, he's expected to win. That's 19% of the vote in 2,444. You know, there was a lot of talk. Labour were talking this one up. They wanted to have a bit of a tilt at Nick Smith. He's one of the Brat Pack, been a very high-profile MP, led that attack on the Greens during this campaign at the very beginning.
Doesn't seem to have hurt him, does it? Banks Peninsula Progress. Again, Ruth Dyson, David Carter, Rod Donald, well back, Rod Donald of the Greens. But Ruth Dyson in front there, predicting a Labour win. Hunua Progress. Hunua is this seat really in between the oceans. Look at that, a lot of Whitford and Cleveland, a very well-to-do sort of a seat, this one, Linda.
And therefore, a national seat always has been. Warren Kidd, the sitting member, he is expected to hold that seat this evening. Now, Whangarei, this is an interesting seat because, of course, John Banks, the sitting member, he has retired, moved on, so it was a brand new line-up, although Brian Donnelly, of course, the New Zealand First MP, going for it there. But National is expected to hold that seat. Brian Donnelly put up quite a good fight, though. He is highly respected in New Zealand First. They put a lot of store in him, of course, the former principal. And he has now got to keep his fingers crossed that New Zealand First gets over the 5% threshold, or he will not go down.
That name in Whangarei, the Labour name we're seeing in Whangarei, Denise Jelicic, is she related to...
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that.
Remember we were going to find that out, weren't we?
Didn't we come to an agreement in the rehearsal that we weren't going to ask that of each other?
I think we sort of both went away and thought we'd go and find out. I would ask someone. We'd ask Nigel Roberts to see we were going to ask. Maybe he doesn't know either. Can you tell me quickly or not? Should I come to you or not on the...
I didn't even hear the question.
Good, don't worry.
All right, don't worry.
We were going to talk about, yes, the Maori seat. Now, before we had our experts over there telling us before, probably 3 for Labour, 3 uncertain. At the moment, we're still uncertain on the Eastern Maori.
Just the one seat. The others we're all looking at going to Labour. So it would be 5 out of 6. And, of course, in that new seat, the Hauraki seat, very strong showing for John Tamahiri. For Labour there.
Though we have not seen much of Hauraki on the progresses for some time. And now we've got, I think, these are Helen Clark's sisters, Jackie Maher at Avondale at the racecourse. Jackie with Helen's sisters. Well, I don't think we've ever seen Helen's sisters. Let's have a listen to them.
Hello, hi, we're here with Helen's 3 very clever sisters, very hard-working sisters. Jennifer, what have you been doing today?
We've been working very hard in the Mount Albert electorate. We've been tramping the streets and just checking on polling booths to make sure everybody's happy. It's been a great day.
This is amazing work for sisters to do for one of theirs. Suzanne?
Yes. I've been on the street as well, from 9 o'clock till 6:30.
Now, I just heard you be told that Helen's not coming here till midnight. What's she doing at home? You've been there having tea with her.
I'm sure she's watching the television like everyone here. Yes.
You had dinner with her tonight. What did she say? Did she say she was going to come later?
We didn't talk about it. No. She'll be along.
Yeah. Excited?
Oh, very excited. I think it's going to be a great night. Yeah.
What about you, Sandra?
Yeah, we're really confident and hope it goes really well for her. She's worked really hard for years.
You're very good sisters, aren't you? Yeah. Very hard on you. Okay, and that's us.
Very loyal sisters, yes. I'm sorry to cut you off. What were you going to say?
Very loyal, hard-working sisters, I was going to say.
Loyal, hard-working sisters of the woman who, at the end of the evening, has a very good shot of being the Prime Minister-elect. Linda, we could say couldn't be the voters slow to come in tonight.
Slow to come in, and hopefully we've got the man who's going to be able to answer the questions, Phil Whelan, joining us now from Avalon, which is where the Justice Department figures are being collated. Phil, it is a little slower than you had picked earlier in the evening.
He said it was going to be fast this year.
He did. He promised us fast and furious.
We asked about that the other day rehearsal. They said no, much faster this year.
So, OK, justify yourself.
Well, yes, I mean, we did expect them to come in much faster, and I do have to revise my projections. Clearly, we thought that the voter turnout was going to be about medium and about the 85% mark. Now, I don't know what it's going to be eventually by the close of the night, but I'm picking now that it's got to be close to the 88% that we had last time, maybe even to 90%. Our returning officers out there are just going mad with voting papers. They have them all over the place and trying to do their very best to get them counted because we know the public wants that info.
Do we think that having the two referendums, there's a bit of debate about that, but do we think having the two of those things to count at the same time is slowing things down?
Yes, it is. Just those few returning officers I've spoken to have indicated that it is taking longer to count the votes generally because of the two referenda. I don't think it's going to be a huge difference, though. It should only be about another 10 minutes on top of the normal count.
Are they all in? Are they all in, Phil? Because there's been a lot of talk about, you know, it being very slow, particularly in the big seats, in those big Maori seats, for example, and in some of the rural seats. Are they all in? Are they all being counted now, or are some still coming in?
Well, when you say coming in, certainly they've all been completed as far as the polling place is concerned. The doors are shut and they are working their way very hard through those. They haven't yet got those results to the returning officer because the returning officer doesn't take long to get them to us.
Do you know how many counters you've got?
Oh, there'll be at least a dozen people, if not maybe even up to 20 in every one of the electorates. So across the board we could have 1,300, 1,400 people out there doing it.
And I'm sure you've got some very nice people too, Phil, because the head of News and Current Affairs today, Paul Cutler, was telling me, I think he went quite early to vote today, and he found a very big queue. He found quite a long queue, but the what do you call them? The people
polling place.
The what? The
polling place.
No, I know the polling place. What do you call the people who put the ruler along the line and say?
Oh yeah, the deputy returning officer and poll clerk.
Well, the deputy returning officer and the poll clerks were coming out. Officials were certainly coming out and saying to the older people, the more elderly people, you come forward so you don't have to stand so long in the queue, and that was a very nice sort of
oh, that's good.
A gesture, wasn't it?
Are you saying that's what they did to the head of News and Current Affairs?
No, he would not, I'm sure, have accepted. He may have feigned a certain decline and got himself ahead. But good, Phil, all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a Tauranga progress report. These are ones that we're watching very, very closely. Look at that, 32 votes in it at this point in time. OK, only 9.2% of the vote in. Too close to call. This is a nail-biter.
Hey, Catherine, what do you... Oh, no, that's Brian Donnelly at the moment we're seeing there. But, oh, no, there's Catherine. No, gotcha. Yeah, that's Catherine. Hi, Catherine, you'll be chewing those nails.
I'm sorry, my supporters are going a bit berserk behind me.
They are.
We're snapping at Peter's heels, so we're very pleased at the moment the way things are going. It's looking good for us.
When you were campaigning, you know, I mean, it was the Winston Peters Fortress Tauranga. When we were campaigning, what did people say to you who said they were going to support you? In what way were they disillusioned with Mr Peters? Because, of course, when we count up your vote and Margaret Wilson's vote, there's a significant number of people in Tauranga who don't want Winston. But what were they saying to you, their reason to coming back to you?
Well, the most common thing that I had said to me was that he's never here, and what has he done for Tauranga? And I think that was what our campaign was based around. 70% of us here in Tauranga don't want him, and vote Catherine O'Regan. That was the campaign that we ran. But we're snapping at his heels at the moment, and it's too early to call yet.
It is
too early to call.
Too early to call Catherine O'Regan. Yes, and she's handling it very well indeed. Linda, I think we can go to
We are going now to Brian Donnelly in Whangarei, where he is putting up a battle for the old seat that used to belong to John Beck's, no longer does. Brian, how are things going for you?
Well, at this stage, with just over 12% of the the votes in, I'm actually running in third place, which could be, you know, always the bridesmaid, never the bride sort of scenario. But it also indicates, well, one booth, that my personal vote is 3 times that of my of the party vote, and last election was only twice. So if that's the trend across the whole of the electorate, then I'm still in with a chance.
Brian, we're seeing New Zealand First support nationwide trending down. We started the evening, you were looking at about 7%. Now we're looking at about 5.5. Do you think you're going to be over that 5% threshold by the end of the night?
Well, I think it's going to be a struggle because the booths that we've got have tended to be the rural ones, Māori ones, provincial ones. And I think when those large city booths come in, then it really is going to be a bit of a struggle to keep it up, you know, at the 5.5 mark.
We saw earlier the concession from Tu Wailea. Now, how big a loss is that for your party?
Well, it's certainly a loss for people like myself who, if we don't win our constituency seats and if we go below the 5%, would have been dependent upon Tu Wailea to get in. Now it could very well be that we're going to be dependent upon Winston winning his seat.
What's gone wrong for New Zealand First, do you think? Why is it that, you know, everyone loved you last time?
Well, I think it was
trouble.
goes back to December 1996 when we made a decision which we believed was in the best interest of the country and also allowed us to deliver what we'd promised, and we knew that we were going to be punished for it, but we made that decision because that seemed to be the honourable thing to do, and it looks like we have been punished for it.
Yes, that's right. So what you're saying is that people have got long memories and they're going to activate those memories tonight, Brian. That's what you think they're doing?
Well, certainly I think that people, for one reason or another, felt disappointed that we went with National. I don't think that they have come to understand clearly enough that we really had no alternative if we were going to deliver the sorts of things that we promised in our manifesto, and we're getting caned for it.
And it was not unreasonable, Linda, for New Zealand First, really. I mean, this is the spin Winston has always put on it, but National got 701,000 votes in 96, Labour 584. I'm not doing it, believe it or not, but you see, he had the, he could say with justification. No. He could say with justification, you know, that he had, that he went with the party of the numbers.
No, but he discovered that form of logic after the event. Prior to the election, he had gone around telling the country, there's Jim Bolger and I'm going to get rid of him, and that was what people were voting New Zealand
I'm sure that when he comes on about 11:30, he'll be able to correct your particular perception of that. Mate, he's going to correct a lot of perceptions. Michael Cullen is in Napier. Happy, Dr. Cullen?
Yes, pretty happy. Looks like we're going to get about 38% or so of the vote, and that's clearly going to be enough in conjunction with coalition partners to form a government. Seems pretty likely at the moment. But we've got a lot of the evening yet to go. The results are still coming in terribly slowly. Yes.
I see that's Rick Barker behind you too. He probably can't hear me talking, can he, at this stage? But how's he doing in Tuki Tuki? Because we haven't had any progress on that for a while.
Well, Rick's doing fine in Tuki Tuki. There's no question Rick's going to win very easily here. So we're holding the Tuki Tuki seat and the Napier seat. And the East Coast seat, which comes down to the Hawke's Bay, and it looks like we're going to win the Ikaroa Rafiti seat as well. So it's pretty much a clean sweep, plus Wairarapa. So it's red all the way down the East Coast.
Well, we'll have to hold our breath on Wairarapa at the moment, but we've got a progress on you. I don't know if you can see a screen there, but have a look at this. Here's a progress from Napier. Oh, no, that's Jeff Braybrook. That's not you at all. You're the list man. I beg your pardon, Michael Cullen. We'll speak to you. Third mistake of the night. I'll speak to you. We'll speak to you a little bit later. So Jeff Braybrook, comfortably positioned there for Labour, wins 60% of the vote cast.
Indeed, and I think now we're going to Tuki Tuk, which is Rick Barker's seat, and he's comfortably ahead there. 51% of the votes counted, and he can be pretty relaxed about the rest of the evening.
To the debating chamber. Now, are we going to a break or are we going to the debating chamber? Let's look at how the picture is shaping up, Nigel Roberts.
Well, Paul, let's go back into the debating chamber. We've only been there once right at the start of the evening. I think that despite the slowness of the results, this is a fascinating evening. Let's fill the chamber with the seats as they were in the House of Representatives. Prior to today, National had 44 seats at the 1996 election. United, of course, had 1 seat. ACT had 8 seats. This is...
Just for a moment, Nigel, and shall we just leave this for a moment and come back to the graphic, if you would?
It's a beautiful thing.
I can tell you what, we've skipped the selection, and this is, in fact, what we are predicting.
At this point in time.
You will have seen, crucially, there is not a New Zealand First seat in the House there, because at the moment, New Zealand First is 4.92. And it really raises the question, Paul and Linda, doesn't it, that the Labour Party has made a crucial mistake in this election. The Labour Party, in choosing an outstanding candidate for Tauranga, has possibly ensured that New Zealand First gets back into the House, because they're not going through to Tatonga and they're not going through Whangarei. And so it seems to me that it's only through Tauranga that that New Zealand First may get back into the House by Winston Peters winning. I think that is a fascinating story. And likewise, the Greens are still hovering around 4.5%, and they could still pick up as the urban booths come in. As Nandor Takshaw said earlier, they did extremely well in some of the booths in Auckland Central. And as more come in, we might see them pick up their fortunes.
And of course, Mike Williams on our panel next door is still saying that he expects the Coromandel will go with the Greens by the end of the day. Now, there's Wellington Central, one of the key seats, and Richard Prebble getting a little bit stronger there. We are now predicting that Richard Prebble will hold Wellington Central. which will give a lot of solace to ACT this evening, because at the moment in the party share of the vote, they're running fourth, and they certainly wanted to run in third place and well ahead of the Alliance. Coromandel.
Coromandel Murray McLean is drawing ahead still of Jeanette Fitzsimons, but only 200 votes between them, 15% cast. We would have to be still calling that too close to call. Again, that's slow coming in, isn't it?
It is, and can I say, I think the bigger booths around Thames, where Jeanette's expected to do well, are not yet in. As
Mike Williams was saying, that's correct. Now, to Taitonga progress, the old Southern Maori, look at Tuwari's conceded effectively, hasn't he? And Mahara Okoroa there, a Labour win. To Taitonga, Southern Maori goes back to Labour.
Teitei Hauarau,
very well.
Yes,
pronounced.
Just slipped off the tongue now, it's late in the evening. Well, Nanaia Mahuta is comfortably home there, and she'll be well pleased with that. Tuku Morgan, 929 votes, not enough. He must regret he ever bought those underpants, mustn't he? Hauraki, this is the seat we were talking about a little earlier, and we met John Tamihere earlier as well. He is expected to win this seat up against his old mate Willie Jackson. Willie Jackson quite high on the Alliance list, and he should be in Parliament, Willie.
Derek Fox is standing by there in Wairoa. You must be quite philosophical, I guess. They've gone back to Māori, Derek.
Well,
to Labour, I beg your pardon, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, have they really? And, I mean, the reality is that at the end of the day, an individual should not have been able to do what has happened here tonight. And I think that the message is, amongst thinking voters in this district, is that we don't really want a bar of Labour. And there's no comfort in Labour tonight, and this thing won't be decided tonight. It'll be decided on the specials, and the reality is that Māori people need to know that at the end of the day, there is no future and no mana in being in someone else's political party.
All right, we have an exciting result for you now. Let's have a look at it. There we have it. We are now predicting on 20% of the vote. It's a progress report only, but there is a prediction now that Jeanette Fitzsimons may take Coromandel. As we said, some of those bigger booths weren't in earlier in the evening. They seem to be coming through now. She has just pipped Murray McLean by about 100 votes, not quite 100 actually.
But again, that's 20% counted, but it could be some other more urban booths are starting to come in. Nigel, the state of the parties, your predictions?
Well, let's have a look at the predictions, and if we start filling up the screen and adding the party vote, the shares so far, Labour now over 38, National just over 30, Alliance still on 8%, ACT 6.8, Greens 4.9, United 0.5, and now, crucially, New Zealand First below the 5% threshold, and we haven't been able to assign any seats, as we were saying, yet to New Zealand First. So let's change this now and see what this does to the seats with the prediction that the Greens will win Coromandel. And you can see Labour's seats 51, Alliance 11. The Greens now have the 7 seats, in effect, that New Zealand First has. Michael Holland was talking about a roller coaster ride. Passengers are falling in and out of the roller coaster cars. The Greens have hopped into a car going up. The New Zealand First has fallen out. But, of course, Tauranga could considerably change that. Tauranga could still bring up to about 5, possibly 6 New Zealand First MPs back into Parliament.
Labour, Nigel, and the Alliance, between them still that 62 figure, which is haunted all night, and National and ACT, the number 50 between them. A progress now. Do we have a progress win for Cargill? Yes, you've got Mark Peck there. A comfortable, well, very comfortable win to Labour for Mark Peck. The 80% of the vote counted almost. To Duncan.
Garner.
Duncan at Methven.
Yeah, well, we just talked again to Jenny Shipley's people, and she's put it back again. She's now talking about an expected time of arrival here of about 11:30 now. We understand the reason for this is that she's looking at the centre-left, a possible centre-left coalition, and she wants to know whether she's going to come here and comment on a two-party centre-left coalition made up of Labour and the Alliance, or just look at those polls, see if she's going to have to comment on a three-party coalition with the Greens in there as well. So she's looking at those results, and she's looking at them like we are, really.
But either way, if they're the scenario she's looking at a concession.
Yeah, that seemed to almost be what I was hearing from her people. Certainly not, again, what Bill English said earlier in the night, but it's certainly moving towards that way, it looks like, from the Shipley House.
Was there some disappointment at Methven that Bill English gave what was almost like a concession?
Well, I haven't actually talked to a lot of the people here on that matter, but certainly from what I heard with what Bill English said, it was extremely strong stuff. And I just wonder what Mrs. Shipley would have been thinking when she saw that come through.
Still, the words perhaps of a realist it was, and perhaps an honest answer Bill English was trying to give, we should say, in fairness. To Tauranga now, and the progress there. How goes it in this trigger seat, this key seat? Catherine O'Regan now ahead of Winston Peters. And, but gee, it's very close. And look at Margaret Wilson, how close she is. Look at how close those three are now. Now,
we have Lee Pearson, who is at Winston Peters' headquarters. Lee, any sign of Winston Peters? Let me guess and say no.
No, absolutely no sign, and people here are watching very, very closely to see how the figures that you put up on the board go. Now, of course, if Winston doesn't win that seat, Tauranga, then New Zealand First is looking like no representatives in Parliament. So it's rather sobering figures that are coming through here for the party tonight. You can hear people behind me saying, oh no, not possible. They're still hoping, got their fingers crossed.
So an air of disbelief, I guess, at this point in time.
Absolutely, and you can hear that band wanting to start up and try and rev up people and make them feel a bit happier about things. But I think the absence of Winston Peters...
Lee, got to interrupt you, Lee. We're going to Jeanette Fitzsimons now at Thames. Jeanette, you're the story of the night. The electorate, the Greens battle in Coromandel, very much the story of the night.
Yes, I think this shows, Paul, that the voters have had a lot of fun today and that they always have the last laugh. That what's just happened is that the first really large booth has come in from Waihi East, and that has shown a 14% gain over where I was last time. And because it's such a large booth, it's affected the overall result. So I suppose we shouldn't have looked so mournful so soon. It's going to be a cliffhanger right through to the end of the night, I think.
Yes, but we are predicting a Green win, you'll be pleased to know. Jeanette. But then again, we've been predicting all kinds of wins tonight, and within 20 minutes they all seem to change. But you're looking a lot happier than you were some time ago.
Yes, I think it shows that it's going to be a close race right through. We've been predicting a Green win for a couple of years, of course, so I'm glad you caught up with us, Paul.
One of our, yes, indeed, yeah, point taken, and one of our panellists, Jeanette, was saying earlier that the trouble was we hadn't really got the urban booths in Thames, for example, Whitianga.
Well, we were actually tracking how our vote compared with last time, and earlier on this evening, the gain compared with last election was not enough to have swung it. But I think this Waihi booth shows that we're back on track again now, and we'll just have to see what happens next.
Well, it might be the voters hitting the last laugh, but you're laughing well after the polling booths are closed, which is a good sign. Speak to you soon.
Okay. We have a result, we have a progress report now from Pakuranga. No, Albany. I mislead you. Murray McCulley, the sitting member there, and expected to be the sitting member tomorrow as well. He's doing quite nicely with 23.4% of the vote in. Now we have Manukau East. Ross Robertson, Labour, the sitting member. He's got a very comfortable lead indeed. One of Labour's quieter MPs, but doing all right for the people of Manukau East, obviously.
And he's done his best, Kenny as well, a local doctor. We've got Manurewa, that's George Hawkins' seat of course, and Labour win there. Mr Hawkins, he's had his ill health over the years, but he remains a very proactive, issues a lot of paperwork from his office. And,
he's a very lively MP.
He finds the good stories.
He certainly does. Mangere now. Now there, Philip Taito Field, expected to win tonight, and look, there it is, 3,321 votes, comfortably ahead of everybody else.
Now let us see what's happening in Epsom, the third richest seat, in the country. Richard Worth there, comfortably at this point, we would have to say, would we, 22% of the vote cast ahead of Rodney High, but by golly, that seat had that's Christine Fletcher's majority. That's simply been
smashed.
It's simply been smashed. What was that majority? Do you remember?
I'm thinking it was 20,000 actually, but on that one, what we don't know is exactly which booths are in at 22%, and I would imagine you'll get some booths there that will go Rodney Hyde's way and some that will stay with Richard Worth. Richard Worth, a lawyer, partner in Simpson Grierson, first-time candidate for National, quite a quiet fellow, and up against Rodney Hyde, who...
Well, Rodney Hyde has worked that electorate tremendously. He's a very nice man to deal with, and he's worked that electorate. The majority he's wiped was 19, as you said, nearly 20,000, 19,334. That was Christine Fletcher's majority, but look at that, 200 votes in it at the moment, so it's anyone's.
Waitara Takere. Now, this is Brian Neeson's seat at the moment, and Labour's Jonathan Hunt up against him, went up against him, didn't expect to win. In fact, to be honest, if it is a Labour government at the end of the night, Jonathan Hunt will be hoping to put the wig on and be the Speaker in the next Parliament. But Brian Neeson there predicted to win, which might make Jonathan Hunt happy, actually, because it doesn't pay to be the Speaker and to list a local MP at the same time.
O'Hara, Belmont. Oh, no, we've got Northcote there. Ian Revel is ahead. Labour have big hopes of this seat, but with 40... just over 40% of the vote counted. It's Ian Revels at the moment, but again, look at that, 300 votes in it. Grant Gillen polling well for the Alliance as well. He's a list MP, he's in there anyway. O'Hara, Belmont, Peter Dunn comfortably positioned. We're predicting United win.
Wellington Central, I think we've got a progress report on next. Of course, this is a close one, and still close, although Richard Prebble seems to be pulling ahead at this stage. We're saying predicted Act win. We were saying a little earlier it was too close to call. Marion Hobbs certainly not conceding, and a lot of special votes in that electorate, so it'll probably be determined after tonight.
Let's just whip through a couple of them very quickly. New Plymouth, Harry Dynehoven holding on there. No doubt there that, look at that majority, he's going to win that. 58, over half of the vote counted. Wellington Central, did you want me to go to another progress there? That's the latest on Wellington Central, as Linda says, 300 votes there. Port Waikato, Bill Birch's old seat. Paul Hutchison, comfortably positioned for a national win. Whangarei, Whangarei, let's just have a quick... Phil Heatley is, for a candidate who was not regarded as particularly dynamic, he's done well to carry on from the work of John Banks. Brian Donnelly well back in third. He's not going to have a very good night. Rotorua, what's happening? Let's see if Max Bradford is still getting the drubbing there. He certainly is. Again, a quarter of the vote counted. Stephanie Chadwick. She'll be a first-time MP, and she is predicted to win. And just quickly before you go to Nando Tanjos, Linda, Wairarapa progress. We're predicting still a national win, but that's nearly 30% of the vote counted. But gee, that's still quick. But again, as the Labour campaign manager said, wait till Marston and Carter can start to come in.
Indeed. Now, the story of the night, or one of the big stories of the night, is the Greens. Will they be there? Won't they be there? There are two of the leading culprits, if we can call you that, Sue Bradford and Nando Tanjos. Now, you two looking a lot more positive again.
Yeah, the mood up here has suddenly got a whole lot better since we heard that Coromandel's now in the lead for the Green Party.
Yeah, you got grumpy for a little while before, I noticed. I thought he did a very good job to put a brave face on it before. But anyway, things are different now, Susan.
Yeah, we're now hoping that we're going to get that good team of Green people into Parliament that we've been hoping for all along.
Now, if that's the case, how are you going to make the change from activist to MP?
No problem. I've been planning this for a long time.
Well, I have to say in Sue's defence too, that's all right. That's all right. A very small part of Sue's work has been activist. She's done a lot of work, of course, with the people.
We're seeing the graphic there, and you can hear the shouts probably in the background. But Jeanette Fitzsimons expected now to win that seat, 20.5% of the vote in, which isn't a bad result. You two would agree.
No.
And Nando, you'll be particularly interested in the Auckland Central progress we can put up now. Coming for you on the screen is the graphic. Judith Tizzard, well ahead of any other, but you're doing very well. Nando, 254 Sanderley, with 18% of the vote counted. So, Nigel, there are some fascinating things, aren't there, tonight? We can... did you want me to go to Nigel next? Yes. Some fascinating things. I mean, two major battles. I mean, the star turns tonight, really, are the people in... is Winston, once again, in Tauranga, and what's happening in Thames with the Greens. Two seats have got us riveted tonight. They're the story of the night. What do you think?
Well, one of the things we can do at this stage of the night, it's about 11 o'clock, and almost all the seats we've made predictions for, indicator booths have come in, progress results. In fact, we've only got a handful of seats, a seat like Epsom, whereas there's still a tight fight between National and ACT. But the vast bulk of the seats have been virtually decided. So let's have a look at who the winners are, but particularly who gets into Parliament on the list. So here we have Labour's list, and now let's take out of Labour's list the confirmed electorate winners and the predicted electorate winners. And, of course, we're saying that these people have all won. We've taken them off the list. Now let's see how far down the list we go. Our prediction is that Labour will have 12 people in on their list at the moment, and you can see down to Brenda Lowe-Johnson, and that goes down to number 42 on the list, bringing in Ashraf Chowdhury. It's fascinating. It's going far down the list, bringing in only one more person on the list than Labour had off its list. The last time Labour had 11 list members. But when we turn to National, the story gets more fascinating. One of the features of MMP is that a party that loses ground, and particularly because of the first past the post battles in electorates, the party that loses ground can actually get more list MPs. And let's see what happens with National. National had 14 list MPs last time. We're taking off the confirmed winners, and now we're going to highlight National's elected list members, and we're predicting that National will have 19 list members. And so, in fact, it comes down, in fact, Jerry Brownlee shouldn't be in on there, and it comes down a long way down the National list, so that National has again 14 last time, 19 this time, and that's a very interesting aspect of MMP.
Well, Jerry Brownlee and Shane Ardern surely should not be.
No, they shouldn't be. I think this is another technological tweak in need.
You know, there was something to be said, wasn't there, for the old days? We had a board and you wrote things up on it and you sort of rubbed it out. Blackboards.
Oh, you're an old-fashioned boy.
Well, I think it's tremendous the way schools have maintained a reliance upon the blackboard, because it is fairly faultless. You know, when things go wrong, is that you rub it out with a duster.
If you look at Labour's list, though, if the predictions are right and Nigel is right, we are going to see some colourful people like, as he mentioned, Mr Chardre, some colourful characters coming into Parliament, not just on the Green side of the House. Stay with us. We're having a commercial break. It's too exciting to go away, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Yeah, I never met a dog I didn't like, which is a good thing considering some of the occupational hazards my friends put me through. This is mine. This is Herman. Ooh, what do we have here? Fleas. Frontline kills within hours. Frontline's the best. It's distributed in the natural oils in the coat. It protects longer and it's waterproof. You need some too, sweetie. No matter who your best friend happens to be.
Frontline for cats and dogs. The confidence of superior protection.
Okay, one more time. Up.
Keep in touch with the plain paper fax 920 from Brother. It's a fax and a copier using plain paper. And with a 2-year warranty, you can't go wrong. Now at the fantastic price of only $449. Call 0800 4BROTHER now.
We rent your side, Brother!
TV1 presents an Air New Zealand Millennium Moment.
Today is November the 27th. On this day in 1984, Jean Wishart announced that she would retire as editor of the New Zealand Woman's Weekly, a job she'd held for more than 30 years. The Woman's Weekly had first been published in 1932. Wishart started as an office girl in 1939, and 13 years later, she was editor. She slowly introduced a more chatty, neighbourly style to the magazine, and her crowning achievement came in 1982, when an issue with Prince Charles and Lady Diana on the cover sold a record 270,000 copies.
I've just been so lucky to have this wonderful career, and so I've never really thought of something else as an alternative. No, I haven't.
Air New Zealand, flying New Zealanders from one millennium to the next.
It takes a great band to achieve 2 albums of greatest hits. It takes a legendary one to have 3. Queen 3. 17 tracks, all the hits, and more. Queen, greatest hits 3. Get your copy on CD or cassette.
How you been?
Missed your kiss.
No Smint, no kiss. Smint, intensely stimulating flavors.
Telstra Business, your business advantage. 6:30 a.m. weekdays on One. Also available on our website at onebusiness.co.nz anytime.
Well, I'm on my own here. My partner's not yet returned from... oh, she's just hitching herself up with the microphone and so forth. Mr Birch Sir William Birch was telling me before I just ducked in to see how the panel were going, and Sir William says if he doesn't get away soon, his wife's going to divorce him. I said there's not much show of that. He said you never know the straw that breaks the camel's back. Mike Williams, of the campaign director of Labour, was saying, of course, what we've got to bear in mind about Tauranga is that if Mr Peters loses there, that's a great deal of the vote that's going to come in under 5%, and that 6 or 7% of the vote is going to be divided up between between the parties which achieve seats and representation in the Parliament. So we could be looking at about 44 seats for Labour, which is effectively a landslide. We've got a rundown for you from a progress from Waimakariri. This is the old Mike Moore seat. It's a curious sort of a seat, Linda. It comes in from the coast, and Rangiora, I guess, is in it, perhaps Kaipoi as well, I think, but it comes round comes round up like a hook. Clayton Cosgrove, of course, was the man for Labour who succeeded Mike Moore, and he's having a close old time there, but he looks to be fairly safe at the moment.
We have Doug Willerton, who is, of course, New Zealand First's former National Party member, actually, but New Zealand First's president. He joins us now from Tauranga. Doug, good evening.
Good evening.
Now, you would be pretty sombre, would you, about things at the moment?
I'm never sombre.
That's an out-and-out lie. I've seen you and you've been sombre.
No, I have not.
Now, our polls, or the progress report at the moment has got New Zealand First on 4.8. That is a whisker, not enough.
That's right.
And I appreciate his short answer, because there's not a lot you can say to that.
No, Doug's known for his short answers, aren't you?
No, well, that's right. You said it's at 4.8. I'm accepting what you're saying at this stage.
Goodness me. Now, if we look up at if you look at a screen, you'll see the Tauranga result. Let's just put it up. Progress report.
Yes.
And, Doug, what do you make of that?
Well, that's a little bit worrying, I have to say, but there's 22.8% of the vote counted, and I certainly wouldn't be falling about until it's a lot higher than that.
Cripes, the day you fall about, I'd like to be there. Can I just ask you, what is it that you think that, what has New Zealand First done here? Why have voters turned away from you?
Well, I think what you've clearly seen over the last period of the campaign is that you've seen a bloc of two parties on the left and a bloc of two parties on the right who are determined that they will have all of the power in Parliament and they're going to get rid of the centre party. That's what they've tried to do, and we'll see by the end of the night whether that's the fact or not. And I don't think it will be.
Richard Prebble sat where you're sitting one night, Linda, at the end of an interview, and I said, what do you think is going to happen? He said, he said to me, exact words, he said, I think the people are going to make a decision. Do you think there's some of that, Doug, that it wasn't so much the parties using a vice trying to squeeze the smaller parties out, but the people wanted certainty? Is there an element of that?
Well, they've certainly, the Labour Party and the National Party have certainly campaigned on a first-past-the-post basis. And I think it's very sad if people have fallen for that, because that's what they rejected some time ago now.
But again, it's, well, it's early days, isn't it? We'll come back to you perhaps towards the, well, I'm sure towards the end of the evening. Is that a new Tauranga progress there? I think we've, Doug, if you look at the screen, is that another Tauranga progress? Or we've done that, have we?
Let's have a look at, oh no, there it is. I think we, pretty much as we saw it just before. No, it is slightly different. But Catherine O'Regan ahead of Winston Peters, 28% of the vote. And Winston Peters, no wonder we haven't seen him yet. He will be watching his tally like the rest of you at home and waiting before we see him.
But again, there's not a heck of a lot of gap, is there, between... you couldn't get a razor blade, really, between that, with only, what, 30% counted, but perhaps Catherine O'Regan is pulling ahead of Winston Peters there. That is the dramatic electorate, really, of the night. We now have a Wairarapa progress for you, and we'll see if...
No, we have a Wellington Central.
Got a Wellington Central, yep, Wellington Central progress, and, well...
Now, that is firming up, it looks like it anyway. 38% of the vote in so far. That looks like Richard Prebble is pulling away from Marion Hobbs.
I guess, too, it's unfair to say, really, Coromandel and Tauranga are the two of the night. Really, it's three, isn't it? Wellington Central as well. That's a tight one.
And all of them where a leader of a party is contesting a seat.
Yeah. Now to Charlotte Glennie at the ACT headquarters. Is there a brightening up going on, Charlotte?
Well, not really. Richard Prebble may well be pulling away from Marion Hobbs, but we certainly haven't seen any sign of him down here. He's holed up in his penthouse suite upstairs, watching the results very closely. We're told he really is quite tense up there, as is the mood down here. Really, everyone is just waiting to see what happens. No one wants to get too excited just yet. So really, it's wait and see, really too close to call, and everyone is nervous here. No one really knows what's going to happen.
Charlotte, we have from Invercargill a progress. We have progress. Mark Peck still there. We're still predicting Labour win. I would think that's nearly...
very comfortably.
Oh, very comfortably.
He may end up on the night, actually, with one of the larger majorities, and he'll be happy to have one of those indeed.
And you see that takes in Stewart Island as well. Taupo, Mark Burton for Labour, 90% nearly of the vote cast, and he's quite comfortable there. To the old Western Maori, Te Haurauru, Nanaia Mahuta for Labour. Very, very convincingly there, 90% nearly of the vote counted, well, just over 80%. And to Rodney now. And there you will see, now, you know, it occurred to me today, while I was going through this file here, I actually
Doing a bit of SWAT.
Doing a little bit of SWAT, if you don't mind, before I had to sleep and then came late for the rehearsal.
Please, yes.
It occurred to me this afternoon, we have not, I think someone should have reported Dr. Lachlan Smith missing in the last sort of 6 weeks. Can you remember when he was last seen or his name was mentioned?
I can't, but I don't want to sound like the Lockwood Smith, you know, fan club, but I have to tell you that, in fact, the WTO round in Seattle begins tomorrow, and Dr. Smith will be there no matter who's in government, because both Labour and National agreed that it made absolutely no sense whatsoever to have a new cabinet minister go over to do that very vital round with it's going to involve, you know, America and our lamb and goodness knows what else, and Mike Moore.
Let's have a look at Lockwood Smith's vote there again. I think this will be a new Rodney progress, and there you see a good nearly 2,500 anyway, half the vote counted.
And as that showed, he didn't have to work that hard.
But look at Sue Bradford for the Greens. Do you see that? 1,000 votes plus in that seat. We can, no sign, yes, and now we can go to Nelson to see how Nick Smith is faring. There we'll be predicting that to be a comfortable national win, and you know...
Oharia Belmont.
Oh, hello. Goodness me, I thought it was going to be, we thought it was going to be Nelson. It's come up Oharia Belmont, no worries about Peter Dunn there. Wigram Progress, Linda.
Wigram Progress, well, we'd be expecting that Jim Anderton would win, and sure enough, 63% of the vote in. He won't be worrying about that at this part of the evening. I think now we're going to go to Marion Hobbs.
To Phil O'Sullivan, I think.
Headquarters, where Phil O'Sullivan joins us. Phil, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Linda. How are you?
I'm very well. Now, tell me about the atmosphere at Marion Hobbs, because in the last progress report, it looked like Richard Prebble was getting a bit of a gain on her.
Yes, it did. There was a bit of a boo went up when that result came out, but people here, it's so close. It's like a sporting contest. It's very tense. Everybody's contested, continually watching those results coming up, eagerly awaited. And although the Marion Hobbs does look as though she's slipping behind a little bit at the moment, they still seem to think that there's quite a bit of a percentage of that vote to come. Plus, there's enough good news coming from other electorates around the country for these Labour supporters here that it seems to be keeping a lot of people smiling, and there's still quite a good party atmosphere going on here.
Is there fluctuation of mood, though, going on, would you say?
I'm sorry, Paul, I couldn't quite catch that.
Is there fluctuation, I said, is there fluctuation of mood going on there?
Well, there is really. So 1 minute there's a big cheer goes up when one result comes through, a bit of a boo when the next result comes through. It's up and down. It's an intriguing contest. Everybody.
It is, as you say, intriguing, and also can't with me.
No,
it is
right,
intriguing, but also close. And as Phil O'Sullivan said, a little bit like a sporting contest. So you want to stay on the edge of your chair. I shall get rid of the...
Whereas Marion Hobbs is 23 on the Labour list as well, so...
she's home and hose because...
she'll be in there some way, but then
she will
again, yes. All right, now we have got... so thank you, Phil. Now we've got... we're going to talk a lot to Phil O'Sullivan. Now we can go to Jeanette Fitzsimons. Happy at the moment? Jeanette?
Hello, Paul.
So it looks... are you getting anything more in your end that you can tell us?
We've had the big Whitianga booth in,
yep.
And that's consistent with the trend everywhere else around Whitianga and that East Coast area around it, and that has put Murray back in a slight lead. But this is going to be a seesaw evening, and we're certainly not despairing because we would have expected that given the rest of the results in Whitianga. I'm still waiting for that other big booth in Waihi to see whether it follows the Waihi result we had earlier, which put us ahead.
Right, and we can see, they're your supporters standing there with... No, they're in Auckland, so that's...
supporters in Auckland.
Right, I was having trouble seeing it. That's,
that's
Green
right,
supporters
Sue
at Auckland
Bradford,
Central,
you can see.
And Nando Tanchos there, looking very closely at that number nationwide for the Greens, but also Jeanette Fitzsimons on her own. Really, well, not on her own, but of course with the supporters in Coromandel.
At the moment, Jeanette, the last time we did a party share, the Greens were looking at 4.9. That's so tantalisingly close, isn't it?
It is indeed. It reminds me of what happened to the German Greens when they got 4.9 in the mid-80s and suddenly lost all their seats, but I don't think that's going to happen to us.
Well, there's a memory closer to home. Didn't Christian Heritage come within just a few thousand votes?
Got about 4.3 from memory. I lost a great deal of money on a bet on that, actually, but we have Wairarapa. This is an interesting seat because a colourful candidate, and there she is, Georgina Bayer, the Labour candidate. Now, of course, this was Wyatt Creature's seat. He's not standing this time, he's just on National's list. Paul Henry, the National candidate there.
She has such a lovely way with people, Georgina Byron, so we must be starting to see, as Mike Williams was saying before, we must be starting to see some of the booths from the towns, from Carterton, from Masterton, Payatura as well. Payatura in the Wairarapa seat coming in there.
Now, Mangakiki, this is an interesting battle because Belinda Vernon, a first-time National MP and really a high performer in the House. She's really made her mark for a young woman. We knew she would have a real battle royale here because she's up against Mark Goshi, who's one of Labour's bright new hopes, also a first-time MP. He's ahead just at the moment. And I think, Nigel, you would like to talk about this, would you? Or have you got something else to tell us?
No, Mangakiki is a very interesting seat because it was one of the very few seats at the last election, I think only two, Nelson and Mangakiki, that saw a National MP win despite the fact that Labour got more party votes. Almost every other electorate was the other way round. The New Plymouth, the Annette Kings in Rongotai, Mike Moore, for example, won the seat, although National got more party votes. Mangakiki was an exception, so in fact the dice are a little bit loaded against Belinda Vernon, and it's obvious from day one she was going to have a battle.
Oh, now we need to interrupt you to see this. This is Jim Anderton arriving at his headquarters in a...
We can say, just on the matter of Belinda Vernon, we were talking about before, she's only 40 years old. She is the highest-ranking non-ministerial candidate. To Jim Anderton now...
Say it first, and I'll go and say it now, and then you'll hear it at the same time, and I can talk to you after that.
Are you here as the Alliance leader or the next Deputy Prime Minister, Mr Anderton?
Well, that'll be up to Helen Clark and I tomorrow, but I tell you what, there's been a change of government.
Have you spoken to Miss Clark tonight?
Yes, I have.
Must be a great feeling walking into this.
Yes, it is.
You've waited a long time for this.
It's a long time between drinks, yes.
What are your feelings at this moment, Mr Anderton?
Oh, well, a bit of humility, I think. New Zealanders have given us a great... well, they've asked a lot from us, and we now have to live up to that, and I think that gives you a feeling of humility at a time like this. But we've got a lot of work to do, and we'll start tomorrow.
You've been waiting tonight with your own...
Let's talk to the troops now, all right? And I'll talk to you later.
So Jim Anderton going to speak to his supporters, and we'll try and bring you that, or we will bring you that live, I promise you. Jim Anderton and his wife, Carol, coming into great jubilation. Yes.
One of the things about Jim Anderton that, you know, you probably will never have thought about this, but Jim Anderton has never, ever been a cabinet minister. He carries himself like a cabinet minister. He's been around so long, you simply assume that he would have been one. But, of course, he split with Labour in those early days of the last Labour government, and he never made it into cabinet. So this time round will be a first time for him, and that's why he really does look quite emotional for Jim Anderton.
Exactly, and a long time in the cold. No matter what you think of Jim Anderton's policies, some people hate his policies. You have to admire the way he took himself out of the caucus, and he put together New Labour, put together the alliance, and he's maintained it, kept the momentum going. Now, we can make a Tauranga. We'll just leave Mr Anderton's headquarters at the moment. We'll go to when he speaks, but we've got a prediction for Tauranga, and we are predicting a national win in Tauranga with Winston Peters well back at 22% of the vote and Catherine O'Regan 35% nearly of the vote.
And we are going to Catherine.
Let's go straight to Catherine.
Oh! I can't believe this. It's amazing.
You can't believe it? Why? You were telling us all along you were going to win.
Well, it's been too close to call for a very long time now, Linda.
True?
So, you know, we are very pleased, of course. Of course, everyone hopes that we're going to win here, and we know we're going to, and this is proof of it. So, however, it's still very close. I'd rather just wait a little bit more yet.
You are being proudly supported by a woman on your right. Do we assume this is your mum?
This is my mother, yes, Mrs Newton, and she's 92 years of age, and she's... What did you say? It's all right.
Mrs Newton is bearing up extremely well for so late in the evening. So we're predicting a national win for Tauranga, and that must be very disappointing for Winston Peters. Hard campaign, Kat. Oh, well, she's gone. I think we can assume it's a hard
That has got to be one of the upsets of the night, because although there's been a lot of talk...
Of the decade.
We're going straight to Jim Anderton. It's rocking and rolling now.
Well, it'll come as a great surprise to you, I know, but I can announce that we have just won Wigram again. And And again, we've got over 50% of the vote, and it's been a magnificent victory here for the Alliance. And I also want to say, and I've had a couple of discussions with Helen Clark tonight, that in my view, and Helen is rightly cautious, but I want to say that it's very clear to me that the centre-left has won a great victory in New Zealand tonight. We will, therefore, have a new government of New Zealand. And as we promised all through the election, the Alliance will be the heart of that government. In communities and cities and towns that we call home as New Zealanders, New Zealanders have chosen a new direction today. And we owe them the respect and the commitment that they have asked from us to deliver what we have promised. For the first time in a quarter of a century, we have chosen a government truly of and for the people of this country, and it's 25 years since we had one. And I'm proud to be part of it. I want to warmly and very sincerely congratulate Helen Clark for becoming New Zealand's first elected woman Prime Minister. I want also to congratulate the Green Party, which has offered itself as a support to the new government and pledge that the Alliance will, as always, and as we have done before, work cooperatively with our Green colleagues, and we will make a positive and constructive contribution to the new coalition government that will comprise, at the very least, Labor and the Alliance. I want to also say to those who have participated in this election campaign, and it's been a long and hard one, that I feel for them tonight. There are many occasions when I have stood on election night and, in a sense, had to say that we haven't done as well as we would have liked. But we have taken a lot of New Zealanders who despaired of any kind of future for the kind of politics that the Alliance stands for, and we have taken you over some fairly rough roads and some fairly difficult times, and we've brought you home to the government of New Zealand, and I'm proud to have done that as your leader. I believe we've got a mandate to get started on creating new, sustainable and well-paid jobs for every single New Zealander who wants to work. We've got a mandate. We've got a mandate to give our young kids an education and not a debt around their neck for the rest of their days. And I want tonight from this hall in the electorate of Sydenham, which has been my political home for 15 years now, to send a clarion call to all New Zealanders, wherever they might be throughout the world, and say to them that tonight New Zealanders, for the next millennium, decided to open a new era for New Zealand, one which is going to give fairness and a future and a sense of commitment and a sense of pride in their own country. And I want to call all those New Zealanders of talent and skill to come home and help us rebuild this nation. It is clear when you read the advertisements of the Employers Association that not everyone voted for this change. But what I want to say to the whole community of New Zealand, the citizens of the country, the business community, the markets as they may be called, that this government has a commitment to the well-being and economic and social development of this country. And no one who has the best interests of New Zealand at heart, whether they be business, whether they be Labour, whether they be ordinary mothers and fathers, the Kiwi mums and dads, much beloved of the National Party, wherever they might be in this country and whoever they might be, the new government stands for the well-being of all New Zealand citizens, every single one of them, and we want to include everyone and we want to be in partnership with everyone. This is a new era of cooperation and partnership, and that's what we promise to the country. I want to also pay tribute to a few people, to firstly those New Zealanders who have voted today for change. It takes some courage to make that change. And I've been around and watched a few changes over the history of New Zealand politics in recent times. And I can promise New Zealanders that this change that they have dared to make is going to pay big dividends for this country. We are really going to see...
That's Jim Anderton then at the Wigram, the Alliance headquarters, acknowledging the Greens and congratulating New Zealanders on the choice. Now, that's Jenny Shipley's house now. The door is closed, but the lights have gone on outside. We understand she might, at this very moment, the Prime Minister be on the telephone to Helen Clark and could well be conceding early. Just at the right of your screen, you can see the car which is waiting to take Jenny Shipley, the first woman, New Zealand's first woman Prime Minister, to her party headquarters.
If indeed that is a concession, this is Helen Clark's house you're seeing. If indeed Mrs Shipley is conceding to Helen Clark at this moment, that would be a departure from the normal run of events. Normally the concession call, there she is, the Prime Minister in her trademark blue.
With her family, and about to hop into the car and go to... yes, well, make her assessment of the situation, which would be expecting a concession.
About a 20-minute drive, I understand. She's somewhere away.
And that's quite right.
Yeah,
so...
she's going to be somewhere away. So about a 20-minute drive, notes in hand. But if she has made that concession already, it would be a change from the norm where the concession call is normally made in public.
Interesting, she's not, doesn't seem to be in one of the Crown LTDs. There's Burton driving.
She likes to drive herself.
And she's in the self-drive, yes.
And he does too, yes.
Escort. And so they set off in the Canterbury night. From Ashburton, which is a very go-ahead place. I found this on the books. A go-ahead, lovely place, Ashburton, positive place, heading towards Meth. For about a 20-minute drive, as you say, and Duncan Garner will be awaiting her here. Let's go back to Helen Clark's house.
Let's go back to Helen Clark's house, yeah. She, of course, in
How
inner
long
city
can you talk
Auckland.
about a door? This is the...
Inner city Auckland, and we would expect that she would be coming out fairly soon. Of course, not a 20-minute drive from where she is to her headquarters. So she may wait and hang on a little. She may want to see a little bit more of the evening unfold.
Linda, while we're, excuse me, just while we're looking at the door, or stop looking at the door, now Coromandel progress again, what do we see there? We'll have a graphic up in a moment or two indicating some progress in Coromandel, very much the seat of the night, the story of the night, and shortly after that, we hope to have a Tauranga progress as well.
There it is. Still predicting that Jeanette Fitzsimons will carry the day there, although, my goodness me, it is a very close call, isn't it?
Yes, it's going to be tight. As a fish is behind, as we used to say in the old days. Coromandel, we've done that. There's Catherine O'Regan and Tauranga. Predicting a national win, as we were before, still nearly 50% of the vote counted, but Winston, well, Winston...
Winston Peters is the man you're going to want to see a little bit later on, because at the moment in the party vote, he is 4.9%. Yep.
Te Tokara progress, Tauhenere has conceded in Te Tokara, the old Northern Maori seat. So Tauhenere, after 6 years in Parliament, first as New Zealand First Deputy Leader, he's gone. Dover Samuels takes on the electorate, he has been on the list now, he's electorate.
Actually, we have that on tape. I think we might...
I conceded to Dover Samuels about an hour ago. And want to certainly go on record as saying I wish him all the best. It's not an easy job, not only being the Member of Parliament for Te Tokara, but also the Minister of Māori Affairs, which I think he's up for. No, my best wishes to Dover, and my best wishes to the Labour Party, because I think that they are now basically the government.
Are you surprised by the result? Are you genuinely?
half and half, really. I thought I was quietly confident, but what has happened is certainly that there's been a split vote between myself and New Zealand First, and it seems as though that people have voted for the party, both in the electorate and on the party list. But hey, that's life. You know, life's a bitch, and then you die.
Well, or then you leave Parliament after 2 terms, really. But I have to say, as Mr Henry concedes and as Mr Henry goes, he's been a delight to deal with from the point of view of the news media. Very colourful character, but genuinely pleasant man, devoted to his family as well. So good luck to Tau Henry. We don't quite know where we're going at the moment. The last time we looked at what Helen Clark was doing, we saw the door. Presumably, Jenny Shipley, if she's been on the photo, Helen Clark.
And there's the door again. The door has not moved.
I think we could get, in fact, if we had sufficient cameras around the country, the Irish had a poster. Do you remember you could buy in Dublin years ago a poster of all the doors? Did you see that?
I do, yes,
and
I do.
And that is a very interesting door. That's a very picturesque sort of a door, an old Mount Eden villa, which has been lovingly restored. And you see a wooden door there, which may always have been there, or may have been taken from a bit of...
Can we divert?
Yes.
Ilam, you'll see that on the bottom of your screens. That's a final. National has won that. Jerry Brownlee will be well pleased because if you looked at the list before, he was just on the cusp. So he's happily back into Parliament. In Invercargill?
No. Oh.
Ah.
Or have we got Taranaki King Country we're going to have a look at maybe, but I think we've got Duncan at the Shipley headquarters in Methven, so now they know Duncan, she's on her way. They'll be happy, I suppose, and because I haven't got Duncan, I think I can answer positively that they'll be happy she's on her way and we'll be pleased to see her. Because,
we have a Taranaki King Country progress report, I understand, coming up. There it is, indeed. And the national candidate, Shana Dern, a whopper of a majority, really, and that's 99.9%. And so I think I'm going to say that it's not.
Let's just go quickly to Nigel Roberts again. Nigel, you're reading on it so far. Have you got any numbers so far? We can perhaps keep pouring these graphics over while we talk. But how are you looking at it? Mike Williams was mentioning to me before, but of course, if Winston does not win Tauranga, you're going to look at 6.87% of the vote was going to be dispersed between the parties who are represented. That's a landslide for Labour.
Well, what it gives is, on the current figures, with the Greens in Parliament, with our current prediction, that the Labour still has 52 seats. Let me just check off the screen. The Alliance has 10, that's 62 seats, even with the Greens in Parliament. Of course, if the Greens were to drop out of Parliament, then the parties that have got seats that stay in Parliament, their share of the seats goes up. So it could only strengthen Labour and the Alliance if the Greens actually went out of Parliament at this stage. So that at the moment, although that's a neck-and-neck seat, I'm interested in, I think that's a seat that's going to be decided on special votes. We'll only know the result on the 7th of December or after the 7th of December. And that's going to be a really interesting one because National has traditionally done well in special votes, but so too, and it's going a long way back, the Values Party used to get in special votes. I think its voters were educated.
But either way, Nigel, we're looking at a Labour Alliance comfortable coalition government.
We are indeed. I mean, the figures add up to over 60, even with the Greens in Parliament. If you took the Greens out of Parliament, as I said, they'd be even stronger. I don't think there's any doubt at all that you're going to be able to have a Labour Alliance government. It's early days yet, special votes aren't in,
It's
but
not
it's
too early,
clear.
though, getting on towards midnight. Hang on, Nigel, I've got to interrupt you there. Let's have a look at Ikaro Rafiti. Rana Waitaisa Ghana there, but nearly 80% counted. Labour are going to win that Parakura Horomia. And, but look, what a fine battle was fought by Derek Fox there. We're predicting a Labour win, but again...
4,000 votes for an independent candidate, actually, and by anyone's measure, is a damn fine fight.
He made a very good point. He said that no party that really thought it had the heart of the people could expect an independent to come along and get almost as many
He's not just
votes.
any independent, though. He is a special character because he's a local mayor and so forth. Now, we've got a Wellington Central progress report. Now, this has been one to watch all evening. My word, Marion Hobbs back in the lead now. We're predicting an ACT win. It's very close, 50% in. Let's not put too much money on it at this point. And as Nigel has been
come
saying,
from nowhere. I'm sorry, yes, anyway.
And as Nigel has been saying all evening, there's a lot of specials in that electorate, and it could well be determined in the days to come, and not this evening.
Just remind us again, Nigel, who do we think will do the best out of the specials in Wellington Central?
The ACT party. The ACT party did considerably better out of specials last time than Labour. Labour, actually, throughout the country as a whole, throughout election after election, doesn't have a great record on garnering specials.
All right, let's go back, sorry, Linda, let's go back to Jeanette Fitzsimons, because Rod Donald, her co-leader, is he right alongside her? I think we can go back and see Jeanette Fitzsimons at some point. And,
Jeanette, can you hear us? Hello, Jeanette. Hello, Linda. Now, any more progress?
Well, yes, but they haven't given it to me yet. They're still calculating.
Do I understand that Rod Donald, your co-leader, is with you, Jeanette?
Oh, no.
Oh, no, I see. We've got him. Yes, he's in Banks. But whereabouts are you, Rod? You've been Christchurch somewhere.
Centre, in fact.
Say again, please, Rod.
Here we are in Christchurch, outside the Arts Centre.
Now, we understand you can't talk to each other. We've got you both up at the same time. You can't talk to each other because of switching problems we have. Are you cheered by the night, or, of course, it's a bit early and we're still on tenterhooks, Rod?
Well, certainly still very much on tenterhooks. I'm surprisingly calm. I'm not quite sure why, but I think back to the 93 MMP referendum, and at about this stage it was 50.1 to 49.9, and we came through at the end of the night, and I'm hoping the Greens will do the same tonight.
Well,
yes, well, not much more to say, really, until we...
You have been the story of the election. I think we're all in a state of shock, actually, because, you know, the polls have given you so much favour, you've lost so much favour, and you're back again tonight. We can't be sure whether you'll get across the line or not.
Well, I guess it helps to make interesting TV, and hopefully people stay up to see what the final outcome is. We've certainly got a big party down here, and we'll be hanging into the last minute. I think it could even come down to the specials, although there's a lot of city booths to come in all around the country in terms of the party vote, and there's some key booths yet to come in for Coromandel. So I'm still picking a double for the Greens.
Let's be generous for a moment and go with your idea and say you're going to be there in the House come next week. Is it a disappointment then that you won't be needed in government, that Labor and the Alliance will be able to do it without you?
Not necessarily. I think, though, we are still committed to supporting a Labor-led government, and we hope that will be a constructive and a cooperative relationship. But we still haven't seen the final numbers to see whether they will need us in the sense of getting that majority. I hope they will want to have us involved simply because it strengthens the centre-left grouping in Parliament and reinforces that the people of New Zealand have definitely voted for a change of direction.
So, Rod Donald, it's still tight in Coromandel. We're still picking the Green Party win. It's good time probably to go to Nigel Roberts again and get his assessment of the state of the parties.
Well, we should now have a look at the share of the seats, because, of course, we've had these dramatic seesawing during the night. First of all, we had the Greens out of Parliament and New Zealand First in, and as the night continued, the New Zealand First party vote declined, and most significantly, of course, we've seen Tauranga disappear from the seats that it's won, or so far with only some of the votes in. Labour 38.4, National virtually unchanged, just over 30%. The Alliance stuck there on the 8, ACT 6.9, still between 6 and 7%. The Greens 4.8, but of course with the prediction, and I think agree with Rod Donald that it'll go to special, so that may yet be overturned, that they will get into Parliament. United 0.5, comfortable, doesn't make Peter Dunn an overhang, and 4.5 for New Zealand First, but not in Parliament. So they're listed on the edge of the screen because we've listed the parliamentary parties first. Now let's just see what that does to the parliamentary representation. And here are the seats in the House stacking up. 52 plus 11 for Labour and the Alliance, that's 63 seats there. 41 and 9 for ACT and National, and 1 for United, giving them 53 seats. And the Greens in there on 6, if, of course, and only if Jeanette Fitzsimons gets the seat of Coromandel.
So it all hangs on you, Jeanette Fitzsimons.
Yes, Paul, we've just had some more numbers from Katikati and Whangamata, and I understand that on the numbers we have now, we're 196 ahead.
And what would you imagine would happen with the special votes? Have you got any reading for those?
Well, it's interesting. I just had a call from Bob Brown, the Green Party senator in Australia from Tasmania and the founder of the Green Party over there, and he said, the Greens always do well on the specials. It's the people who come down out of the bush.
Yes, well, they're going to be some...
So, I don't know whether that's true or not, but we've actually had quite strong campaigns running in both London and Sydney because a lot of New Zealanders are over there. There are more New Zealanders vote from Sydney than vote in Christchurch, and we've been campaigning over there, and the Australian Greens have been helping us, so we might do quite well on the specials.
Well, and there it is a night for concessions, and I will concede that when Rod Donald came into the press gallery office and told me that you were campaigning in Australia, I looked at him as if he was a madman. But now I can see if you get enough votes, that might just be be the secret.
It's not silly at all. London, and that's right, and the people who tend to travel tend to love the world and are interested in the world and tend to respect the environment, I guess. All right, Jeanette, speak to you soon. Rotorua, a progress result. Stephanie Chadwick, I would think, is well ahead in Rotorua still. 1,500, or just short of 1,500 votes ahead of Max Bradford. That's a drubbing of the night, really.
He has had a walloping, actually.
And to Ikoro Rafiti. Remember, this is the old Eastern Maori seat. Again, look at the size of that seat geographically. Hard one to work. Parakura Horomia is comfortably now ahead of Derek Fox, who's run the campaign as an independent. Now we've got a Wellington Central progress. What do we pick there? This is the other of the three great stories of the night. Though we could say that this one has been too, the Ikoro Rafiti. Still predicting an ACT win, but you see Marion Hobbs a couple of hundred seats ahead. Now, Duncan Garner. You're at the Shipley headquarters in Methven. When are they expecting the Prime Minister to arrive? Duncan?
This is the first of her crew arriving just as right now, actually. They're just arriving, but the Prime Minister is 5 minutes behind all her support staff, so she'll be here, actually, I've just told, less than 5 minutes.
And what kind of welcome is she going to get, Duncan?
Well, everyone's been waiting here for a long time. There's a lot of people here, and I mean, they are elderly people, and they've been waiting for a long time, so they're all sitting down, and they're pretty pensive, really. There's some pretty quiet people.
Are they expecting the concession?
Well, the first they heard of it was just before when you and Linda talked about it. We can confirm that that has happened. She has rung Helen Clark, and the nature of the call is pretty much a concession.
Oh, so that will be a pretty sombre mood. I mean, you can expect, of course, what normally happens in this sort of, the leader, even of the party that has lost, will get a rousing welcome from their own supporters. Only fair, only expected.
We would expect, I suppose, the last of the leader's speeches to be that of Helen Clark, but then again,
No,
that's quite right. In normal circumstances, but we have the other character in this who is going to be...
Mr. Peters will be the last.
And there could well be a battle of rank tonight, a sort of a test of rank, so who knows if Mr. Peters will come to his supporters in Tauranga.
There could well be a battle of wills between him and Television New Zealand as who can last out the longest. But yeah, we won't be seeing Mr. Peters for a while. A Tauranga progress report. This is why we won't be seeing him. At the moment, we are predicting still that Catherine O'Regan will win that seat. Nearly 60% of the vote in now. And Winston Peters, 100 behind. I've got to warn you that Winston Peters is a great one for the recount. He's made recounting part of his political history.
Well, he got, according to...
He got Wyatt Creech in through the recount.
He got Wyatt Creech in, and of course, the person who got him the recount was it who knew her, was none other than the former head of the special... What's it? The business fraud. What's it called?
Oh, God, Sturt.
Chaz Sturt.
He was his lawyer. And of course, why we're talking about this and why you at home need to be thinking about it and sticking it in the old box and swirling it around is that if he's 100 or so down, he can easily go for a recount in his seat. If his party vote is about 4.9, which we've got it at the moment, 4.8, 4.5, he can go, believe it or not, for a party recount. That means 67 district court judges get together. Each one takes an electorate. All of the ballot papers are recounted, every single one. I don't need to tell you this is going to take forever. And that would leave things in the balance, whether or not Winston Peters was in the House or not, and we wouldn't really be able to call the precise number of seats each party has got until that count was completed. No,
it would be a very long process, and we've had a long process because of the situation that Mr. Peters found himself in last time. But certainly that latest progress from Tauranga, there was only 100 votes between 100 odd between Catherine O'Regan and Winston Peters. We're doing our best at the moment. We've got Jim Anderton. Mr. Anderton, congratulations and good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
A long time in the cold, or between drinks, as you say.
Yes, I wouldn't have wanted to hold my breath since Time magazine suggested I'd be a leader for New Zealand in 1974, that's for sure.
You know, people have spoken about what a great campaign it's been for you, and indeed you've been very relaxed. There's been the new styles, of course, the suit and a couple of shirts and so forth, but it's as if you felt confident, or as if you had once again found your straps. What was the difference in, you say, between this time and last time in the campaign? Did you feel there was one?
Well, there were a number of things. I mean, for one thing, I felt that the burden of trying to carry the weight of the problems that New Zealand had got into over 15 years had been lifted a bit, because I had to come to the conclusion that if after 15 years we couldn't convince New Zealanders this time to give it a go, then in a way we'd never convince them. So I felt reasonably relaxed about that. and I just did the best I could to present an image of confidence and positivity for the future of New Zealand, and that's what I think we tried to do in the campaign. Also, the organisation gave me my head of it.
Yeah,
They
Jim, I've
actually
got
said,
to, Jim, I've got to, with the greatest respect, I've got to cut away because the Prime Minister's arriving at her headquarters in...
oh, right. Well, she's more important than me at the
Jim.
moment.
We will come back, but you'll want to watch this like the rest of the country.
We'll come back to you at some point.
Excuse me, Prime Minister, what was your message to Helen Clark?
She's not inclined to tell the reporter with the microphone before she gets into...
The classic National Party bagpipe is drowning out.
Jenny Shipley entering the hall where supporters have waited. A number of them, I would say, long-time party loyalists, would you say, have gathered at Methven.
Indeed.
She's being led in there to acclamation. Not much doubt that the phone call to Helen Clark has been one of concession because we have a very firm indication already tonight that Labour and the Alliance can form a government. Coming into the hall where they've waited in Methven for her.
A lot of her staff actually there in the front row. They will have flown down to Wellington to be with her. To be honest, it won't be a surprise to her. Those polls have said for some time now that that was going to be a long shot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your wonderfully warm welcome. It appears that New Zealand has decided that it's time for a change. Okay. It is... I couldn't have said it better myself. You may be interested to know that this evening I have spoken to the Right Honourable Helen Clark and have warmly congratulated her on her success. It appears, as the results are coming in this evening, that there is sufficient public support for a centre-left government to be formed. It is not clear yet what composition that government will take, but in my view it is significantly clear enough for me to be able to say to Helen Clark, I congratulate her on her achievement. I have given Ms. Clark our assurance that as the incumbent government, we will of course manage our caretaker role while the new grouping negotiates the basis upon which a new government can be formed. That may or may not take a number of days, and it is of course then up to the Governor-General to confirm this at the appropriate time. The incoming government and all New Zealanders can be absolutely assured of our total cooperation in this transition period. We love this country far too much to have anything happen that will do anything to damage its international or domestic reputation. Can I thank the New Zealand National Party? Every single member at every single part of this country has done a wonderful job. John Slater, our president, all of the divisional chairmen, all of our members of parliament and all of our candidates, along with Jeff Grant, our campaign manager, have done all that we could to see that centre-right values prevailed during this general election. But New Zealanders have decided that it's not our turn. Although I must say I am very proud about the extent to which the centre-right has held up during this period. I am also very proud of the National Party. We leave this country in a very good state. The economy is strong. Every week there are new jobs emerging, and there is an export-led recovery underway. I want the left to know, indeed I want to give them an assurance that the National Party will lead not only a loyal, but a highly active opposition to see that these gains... to see that the gains that New Zealand has made in this last decade are not only retained, but as much as we are able, we will try and lock them in. They have been too hard fought for, not only by the National Party, but by most New Zealanders, for us to allow them to slip away. Can I also thank every person who voted National this time? I value your support, and we will try and be worthy of it during the coming 3 years, or perhaps less, depending on the final coalition. And we will try and ensure that the values that drew you to vote this time, and for those of you who are members, the values that have over and over again had you out supporting the party, that we are worthy of that support and continue to fight for at least a stronghold in that direction of New Zealand politics. Can I thank my wonderful Rakaia team? I can't ask for more than you have given me in the last 2 years. As Prime Minister, I know that I have left you so often to do the work at home while I have tried to work for New Zealand. And I can do nothing other than thank you for your loyalty, your total belief in the values of the New Zealand National Party and in me personally, and your overwhelming support for myself, for Burton and for the family. Finally, can I, on behalf of the family, thank New Zealand for the opportunity that we have had. It is a great privilege to lead your country, and I know that not only I, but the children in Burton have done our best to serve New Zealand well during these last 2 years. I have to tell you, I could not have done it without their love and care, and I intend to continue to do it. Indeed, all of us give you our commitment to work as hard as we are able. I didn't want to be the leader of the opposition, but I do intend to relish the role and to continue to uphold National Party values and do the best we can to hold the Parliament to account so that this country continues to move forward. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, that was a very strong, very fluent, very convincing speech from Jenny Shipley, in which she congratulated Helen Clark on having the numbers for a new government. That was the concession speech from the Prime Minister, from Jenny Shipley, leader of the National Party, but vowing to carry on in opposition in the present role she has within the National Party, Linda.
Yes, certainly no indication there that she intends to give the job away. And I think, to be honest, there was more sparkle in her there than we've seen in the last couple of days.
Just quick too, yep.
Another progress report from Tauranga. Catherine O'Regan still ahead, but we're predicting now, still there, a National Party win, although there's about 100 and so odd votes in it.
Coromandel. And we see prediction of a Green win still, oh gosh, 29 votes between Murray McLean and Jeanette Fitzsimons. Wellington Central a progress. What gives in Wellington Central in the capital? 60% of the vote counted. Richard Prebble 100 ahead of Marion Hobbs.
There's going to be a lot of recounts, I think. There will be counts in a lot of these seats.
We're hoping to get hold of the Prime Minister or the departing Prime Minister, getting that sorted out. A couple more progress. Is that a new Wellington Central progress you've just given us there?
Hamilton West. Let's have a look at Hamilton West. Martin Gallagher there has going to take that seat from Bob Simcock. He had it once before. He's going to take it again. Bob Simcock now reliant on the list to get him in. And I think we might have a progress report from Epsom. There's been a real fight here, and look, still goes on. We're now expecting that Richard Worth will hold that seat, but Rodney Hyde has given him a real battle.
Well, look, from 19,000, what is it? What did we say before?
19,300.
300. That majority for National Epsom's gone from that to 300, so that is, Rodney Hyde has had a tremendous battle there. Richard Worth, I think it's fair to say, pleasant enough man, but has not galvanised the electorate behind him, obviously. From Hutt South to Hutt South now, this is Trevor Mallard's seat, and so very comfortable win to Trevor Mallard there, no worries at all. And to Rimataka, which is directly to the north of Hutt South, Paul Swain will carry that for the Labour Party. So it's red all the way, isn't it, at the top of the charts tonight?
It is indeed.
Sorry, Linda.
No, Rongotai, an interesting seat. Perhaps, no, well, yes. Annette King, it was her seat before, it's her seat again. Stuart Bogue, influential in the National Party, been a loyal party player for a long time, not expecting great shakes in Rongotai. It's just Labour, Labour, Labour in that part of the country.
Quite a bit of travelling associated with the Rongotai seat too, because you have to service the Chatham Islands. Do you know that? The Rongotai member is also the member for the Chatham Islands. We're just hoping at any time. Well, am I right or am I wrong, Nigel?
No, you are always right, but
not always right, Linda. We are hoping to be able to speak to Jenny Shipley, who's made her concession speech, made it in full voice, in good throat, and there's Burton, I don't know if you can see this at the moment, Burton's talking to one or two people, and the Prime Minister, we're hoping to be able to get to her to interview her too. Now,
and in fact, there she is.
Jenny Shipley, there's Paul here, good evening.
Hello, Paul.
Well, I'm sure a great number of New Zealanders will express their sorrow too, but also their admiration at the way you delivered the concession speech.
Well, thank you, Paul. It's something that, of course, the Prime Minister never wants to do, but I love this country too much not to see that the transition is managed well, and we will work hard to see that that is the case. To be fair, it's not entirely clear at this stage, but I felt it was clear enough to congratulate Helen Clark and wish her well.
Did you know through the week it was coming, Prime Minister?
Oh, I knew it was going to be closer than some had predicted, but certainly there has been a shift there. And in some respects, we had a difficult campaign, but in some respects, some of the things I was involved with also are transpiring to be correct. It's not clear yet, of course, whether the Greens and New Zealand First will be in the Parliament, and National has worked quite hard in those areas, as you know.
Why has it happened, Jenny? Why did you lose, do you think? Is it simply pendulum after 9 years of National-led government, or was it the policies? Is there a mood for change? What was it?
Well, I think that Labour campaigned very well on the question of mood for a change. And as we know, historically, it takes a heroic event to be able to stop a 9-year swing. But to be frank, I'm very pleased with the amount of vote we've been able to retain. There's been a lot of prediction that we would be decimated, and indeed some people were predicting landslides earlier in the week. That has not been the case here. In fact, the centre-right vote is very similar to what it was at the last election. And so overall, while I would far have preferred a win for National in terms of forming a National-led government, I'm still very satisfied that we've got a strong base from which to argue a new direction in due course.
When did your heart tell you tonight it was lost, when you were, you know, watching the results come in?
Oh, there wasn't a particular point,
No.
Paul. In fact, it's been an incredibly interesting evening.
Yeah.
There have been seats moving around, and indeed, I don't think we're going to know finally what the result is here tonight. But I felt that it was clear enough that it appears 61 or 62 seats are available to Labour and Alliance. And from my point of view, I didn't want to hold New Zealand up further. I do think that many people want to get to bed, and it was time for us to try and deal with that.
We would like to get to bed, Mrs. Shippey. I wonder if Mr. Peters might be rather late to attend his gathering, so I think he might be the one we're waiting for.
Yes, I haven't heard what the latest position is in Tauranga.
Well, that's a national victory. We're predicting that. It's fairly tight, but Mr. Peters is still perhaps within grasping distance. But what did Burton say about the loss of the 9th floor job, of the top job in the country?
We haven't even had a chance to discuss it. But look,
well, you're sitting alone in the car for 20 minutes.
That's true, and I was both listening to the radio and thinking about what I was going to say. And we were talking as a family. Look, this is a family that doesn't look back, Paul. No. I intend to try and be an extremely effective leader of the opposition. I do intend to hold the centre-left to account, and if I can persuade them not to unstitch some of the things that are important there, I'll certainly be doing that.
They brought you in, though, didn't they? But just to ask you this quickly, they brought you in as the leader. Jim Bolger went, and you were brought in not only to deal, perhaps, to Mr. Peters, but also as a chance for a 4th term. Do you feel you have failed the party? Do you feel you have failed?
No, not at all.
OK.
I've worked very hard for the party. They've worked very hard as well. And this is a wonderful political party, which I'm proud to lead, and I do intend to fight to continue to see that national values are put in front of the New Zealand public, and the government is held to account.
Right, now, Jenny, I've got, Prime Minister, you have the possibility, if you wish, to speak to Mr. Anderton. He's hooked up and he can hear you at his headquarters in Wigram, and he is particularly pleased with the way the vote's gone tonight. Would you like a word with him through this programme? You can do it right now if you wish, but you don't have to. Would you like to?
Well, I would congratulate the centre-left, and I've done that with the leader of the Labour Party. She is clearly the designate Prime Minister, and I think that whoever she chooses to work with is a matter for her, but I congratulate Jim Anderton. I don't think it's as much as he had hoped for, but any success is worth acknowledging.
Prime Minister, I've got to leave you there. Jim, I've got to leave you there. Winston Peters now is arriving at party headquarters, New Zealand First headquarters in Tauranga.